mag-ready na kayo sa ating mga next lectures and speakers. But before that, guys, ayan, busog na busog po, sabi ni Vera Janel. Oh, busog na busog. Okay. So, but before that, guys, mag-bonding muna tayo ng onte. Okay? Mag-bonding. Gusto ko mas makilala yung mga participants natin. Okay? Since gusto ko malaman sa mga participants natin, since nagsimula yung pandemic, ano yung inyong mga naging quarantines? So, ano yung mga sinimulan nyong gawin? Or ano yung mga mas na-improve nyong gawin, tinuloy nyong gawin na dati busy kayo nung pre-pandemic, pero ngayon, mas marami kayong nailagay na oras, kaya mas gumagaling kayo dito sa bagay na to. Sabi ni Dariel Lampa, magmahal ulit. Oh, yun ang kanyang quarantines. Okay, yan. You can say cooking. Maraming mga nag-improve sa cooking nila at na-discover na may talent pala sa baking. Ano pa ba? Naging into K-pop. K-pop. Ako personally, medyo ako ngayon. As into K-pop ako ngayon. Sinastan ko ang BTS. Yan, okay? Meron ding naging into fitness, 'di ba? Nag-invest sa mga bike, sa mga gym equipment. Ayan, magluto, sabi ni Kalabit Daniel. Nagluluto siya. Planting, ang dami palang plantita dito. Si Annabel Corpus, hello. Okay, una po sa lahat yung adjustments, okay, sa learnings. Ayan, syempre online tayo ngayon, no? Maraming nag-adjust sa learnings. Webinars and plantings, that's good. Okay, at least, di ba? Natututo pa rin tayo kahit nasa bahay tayo. Online business. Okay, share mo naman yan, anong online business yan. Sabi ni Dave, mag-coding. Wow, can do coding siya ngayon. Rowena, mahalin ang maling tao. Wow, yun ang natutunan. Yun ang quarantine ngayon ni Rowena. Makipag-quarantine. Wow, quarantine. Uso pala yun. Okay, uso pala. Okay, ano pa? From workout and cycling from Yivo. Workout and cycling, same. I'm into workout also and biking. Yes, cycling. Okay. Ano pa? Ayan, digital arts. Yes, glow up. Wow, nag-glow up si Jamil. Glow up, charot. Sabi niya ganun. Seminars, webinars, K-drama. Yes, alright, K-drama. Ano pa? From Rojas City. Hello, hi. Kamusta? At saka kamusta palang weather dyan sa inyong location? Kasi ngayon dito sa Quezon City, medyo maulan kami. So I hope you're all safe kung nasan man kayo. Good afternoon. Anime. Yes, marami rin naging into anime ngayon. Video editing, Christian. Si Marge into anime. Ayan, medyo makulimlim, sabi ni Criselda sa place nila ngayon, sa location niya ngayon. Okay, ingat po tayo. Ayan. Good afternoon po from PUP Calauan, si Mika. Good afternoon from Jome, PUP, ayan, St. Anne College, Lucena. Hello. Shout out sa La Verdad Christian College, Apali, teachers and students. Hello, everyone. Okay, so please continue to post your thoughts or your pictures while you're tuning in here in Y4IT. Please do post them on any social media, actually Facebook, Twitter, but mas active tayo sa Twitter, and also Instagram. You can also tag me on Instagram at Nick Cardenas. Okay, baka nag-wonder kayo bakit nagpalit yung pangalan ko, no? Monique Cardenas. So kanina ang na-capture ni Zoom ay yung first name ko, but my full name is Claire Monique. So okay lang yun, but mas ginagamit ko si Monique Cardenas. So hello everyone. Okay. Ayan, good afternoon po. Shout out ACT1 lang La Verdad. Ang daming mga taga La Verdad, very active. Hello, good afternoon. All right, okay. So I think, thank you sa mga active sa ating chat. Okay. I think guys, you're all ready for the next part of our program. I know you can't wait for the next set of lectures and discussions, so allow us to present our first speaker this afternoon. Right, our first speaker as VP of Corporate Development and Innovation at Smart PLDT, as one of the youngest executives in the Philippines during his time. He was also awarded by the President of the Philippines as one of the 10 outstanding young men and women of the country for his contributions to Philippine innovation technology. Today, besides being a co-founder for Plentina, an AI and fintech startup headquartered at Silicon Valley, he's also an adjunct faculty for the Asian Institute of Management on the topics of innovation and digital transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Earl Valencia.
Hello, hello. Yes, hi, good afternoon. Kumusta po lahat kayo? I'm glad that I'm here with you. I spoke in Y4IT before, but syempre it's the pre-pandemic version. So I'm glad that I met with you. So let me pull up kind of my um, let's see. Ayan, naka-desktop muna to. Sorry about this. Ayun, let's see. Present. Yan. Okay, good. Yeah, so at least after lunch, I was thinking of what I wanted to tell you, specifically on the startup journey. But I also thought about that, when I was a student, I was in UP. Um, what I would love to hear from the speakers, especially in a technology conference. And I thought that maybe I'll talk about the startup journey, but also some lessons I learned generally in my career, being in the corporate world, being in a startup world, being in the investment world, right? Again, I guess Monique kind of mentioned generally my background. I grew up in Manila most of my life. I went to UP, and then at some point I wanted to become an aerospace engineer, astronaut. So I was an aerospace engineer for a couple of years, and ended up going to the business side of technology. So I worked in Cisco, VMware, EMC, so a lot of the kind of the tech infrastructure companies in the US, and then went back to the Philippines to lead innovation for Smart. And now I am a co-founder of a fintech called Plantina, not Plantita, right, or whatnot, which is the sometimes the customer service emails us and calls us plantito or plantita, right? So yeah, so really today is really about what are some lessons I wanted to impart, I guess, into you to really accelerate you as you build up your technology careers in the future, right? So to see your background again, what is Plantina, right? So the origin is plenty na, right? So plenty na. We provide the buy now pay later app, so you can access your most loved brands on credit even without a credit card. So basically you can buy now and pay later, and even without a credit card. So Plantina, in a nutshell, we're one of the top Filipino-led startups in the Philippines. We're operations nationwide. We launched last year. We have more than 1,000 downloads, and we've gotten investments from venture capital funds, about $3.5 million or so since we started. And what does buy now pay later mean for you? So go feel free to go to the Google Play Store and explore Plantina. Again, it's a homegrown Filipino startup for students and young professionals, where we partner with your loved brands. Like we just launched 2 days ago with McDonald's, so you can buy your burger, McDo, and spaghetti meal now and then pay 14 days later. You can pay smart load now, pay later. We partner with Lazada, and then obviously if you also have National Bookstore, we can buy school supplies now and pay later, right? So 14, 30, 60, or 90 days later. So hopefully that will give you better kind of possibilities on the payments space. So we're a fintech company for that. So yeah, I think those are the general thoughts of Plantina. So as I reflected on both my startup journey and just generally my career, I thought about three main questions, right? And for all of you, especially in your early technology career, something to reflect on. Um, what when actually maybe at graduation speech, maybe some of you, maybe a lot of you will be invited to be a speaker in Y4IT. I don't know, maybe 10 years from now, 20 years from now, right? How will Monique introduce you, right? And always think about that, because you always want to project where you want to be in the future and how you want to be introduced, right? So that's very important, so that you know where you're headed as a career, right? So if you want to really be known as a really good, let's say, infrastructure tech infrastructure person, maybe it's about, you got a Cisco certification, your Google Cloud certification, whatnot, right? So what are the things you want to do? Maybe you got a PhD, right? If you want to be a professor, right? So all these things, something that you would think about. Another thing that you have to think about is, what matters to you, and why, right? So is it building cool technology? Is that what matters to you, right? Is it having a stable job? Is that what matters to you, right? Building a company like a startup, is that what matters to you? So you have to just think of what are those answers to those questions, and yeah, and answer this question. Right, this happened to me, right? What would you do if you um, you know what would you do if you would do really if someone actually funded your dream? So this happened to me 10 years ago when I was 27 years old. I ended up in vacation in the Philippines. I'm actually calling from New York now, but I was in vacation in the Philippines. I ended up meeting with my former boss, but at the time I really wasn't there. So I met with MVP on a whim, and he just asked me these questions. What if I gave you money to invest in your idea, what would you do? And I had this thought of, maybe at some point we'll build the Silicon Valley of the Philippines. And yeah, after that pitch, he ended up giving me $12 million to start Idea Space, which is a startup accelerator that's still actually very active today. And also Kubo, which is the National Innovation Center with the government. So you have to think of yourself. I mean, someone asked you today, maybe 5 years from now, if you know, someone wanted to fund your dream, what would that dream be, right? Because you never know what would happen. So I have, after these questions, I have kind of 5 challenges for all of you listening right now to something reflect on, right? And again, it's very somewhat meta, maybe like a reflective mode. What happened in the pandemic, I kind of thought about life and all that. So for all of you, think about this too, because this relates to building a startup, right? Because you have to know yourself before you build your startup, or else it becomes just chasing the market, right? So you have to know inside of you what actually is important. So number one challenge is what is success, right? How will you measure success later on? Is it money, physical health, mental health, financial freedom, right? Yun nga eh, what does living your best life mean for you, for yourself? No, and no one else can define it but you, right? So for me, it was to build something for the Philippines, right? So I built Idea Space for the Philippines 10 years ago, and now building this Plantina, like a fintech startup for the Philippines, so that all of you, even without a credit card, can buy on credit to your favorite brands, right? And hopefully in the future, more financial services. So that was my dream, and I'm lucky that we're doing that, right? Another thing to think about, and actually when I did this when I was in UP, I think it was Y4IT, but another conference too when I was in engineering, is really write down what I wanted to do 5, 10 years from now. And I said that maybe in the future I'll go to grad school. I want to have a vacation. I didn't have a lot of money at the time, but I just had this wrote down goals of what I wanted to do. I never wrote down that I wanted to be a startup founder. That was never in my horizon. But I knew I wanted to be a good engineer. I wanted to become an astronaut or an aerospace engineer. So I definitely tried to pursue it, even if it was difficult. Right? I ended up doing it, which is great. Right. So for you, you just have to think about that. A lot of times, kunyari, master's degree, like a lot of times, you might not think of it for yourself, but if you really want it, write it down and it might actually happen, right? So for me, I wanted to do that. I said at some point I wanted to get my master's degree, and I ended up getting it, right? Another thing to think about, my next challenge for you is, look at your career, not just a job, but actually a career, right? Because especially now in the age of the internet, um, people can have a full-time job, they can have a side jobs. You make money on investments. Some of you might be kanina, the crypto guy, parang baka some of you are exploring, right? Should I invest in all these things, right? Some of you might think na, maybe I should invest in real estate or invest in school or my own, more education, right? And yeah, I think that's really the thought process here is, how do you build a career that is not just one dimensional but multi-dimensional, because this is the internet age, right? So for example, for me, again, I'm building Plantina, but because my passion is in teaching, I'm also a adjunct professor at AIM, right, doing digital and transformation and innovation. So I just enjoy that. And when I see some of my executive students talking about innovation, that just excites me, right? So for you, you have to think of what those career levers are. And again, having one job and one job alone is also okay. But, a lot of people are doing side hustles, side gig, sideline, right? Whatever you call it. This is actually another particular important thing, and something that I really value during the pandemic is, especially when you're building a startup or doing something hard, especially like IT, engineering, computer science, it's really hard. And I always got envious with my friends in UP na nasa BA, right? Like nasa business ad, econ, etc. Like I always thought that I was so envious of them because they had a little bit more time to go to socials, etc. Right? So, um, yeah, but I realized that the biggest thing really for you is, not to look out but actually look in, and also find out like who are the people around you that you can trust, that you can talk about your own challenges with money, with life, with your dreams. No one's going to crush your dreams, all these things, right? Because if you want to be like the best engineer or IT person, be around people that will help you get to that level, right? So I think that's the big thing. And take out the people that I try to put you down, because it's hard, no? Hirap na talaga. Like in the end, it's are the technology track is the hardest track, I think, right? That most people have to go to, and very few people understand it. So you have to at least have a group of people that you trust, that you can talk, technology, money, life with, right, on a regular basis. This is kind of my second to the last slide, and we can just do like different questions here. Is yeah, I mean, um, yeah, life is really optimizing about happiness, right? Money, careers, right? Your path, starting a company, etc. Like all these things. But I guess for you, what you really want is, how do you achieve your goals, your dreams, regardless of what that is, and just optimize for that, and no one else should take that away from you, right? So yeah, I think that's really my kind of startup journey here, on really thinking about, first, again, look inside of you. Where is your vision 5, 10, 15 years from now? How do you look inside on like understanding yourself? What does success mean to you, right? And then at some point, maybe at some point someone will ask you, what is your dream? And if I gave you the money, what would you do, right, with that money to achieve your dream? And I think that's really how we should all think, because you when luck really happens, right? When preparation and opportunity collides, right? So we always want to have luck in our side. And I'm really hoping that all of you now, right, the thousands of you listening, will build your own amazing technology careers, built on preparation and opportunity. So yeah, that's it. And yeah, if ever you want to check out our Plantina app, more than 100,000 people downloaded us already. Just in the Google App Store, though, we'll have iOS maybe in a few months. But yeah, feel free to do buy now, pay later through Plantina. But thank you again for the opportunity here.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Earl, for sharing your Plantina journey. All right. Okay. So, guys, we are now open for any questions for our speaker or Earl. Okay, meron dito nag-raise ng hand. Open. Guys, you can please send in your questions and your thoughts about the topic of our speaker, about Earl's talk. Okay, please feel free. Ayan, may nagtanong na. Earl, sabi dito by, let me check, by Eusebio. Where is it? Eusebio Junior Columbino. Personally,
Oh,
sir, what are your best practices that brought you to where you are now? Seb from UEP Binalonan.
yeah. No, thank you for that question. No, yeah, ako kasi when I was a student, right? When I was in UP in engineering, I had I wrote down actually a list, right, of basically things I wanted to do before I turned 30, right? So it was like impossible things, right? Sabi ko, I want to graduate with honors. I wanted to get masters. Ay sabi ko, yung nakita ko yung mga fancy cars, sabi ko, one day ba, gusto ko rin ng magandang kotse, 'di ba? Gusto ko mag-travel. I really had like a list that siguro every few months, I look at the same list. It's like, kailan ba mangyayari tong list na to? But all throughout from 18 to 30, I always kept looking at it. And yeah, I mean, pati dun, like I wanted to marry my high school crush, all these things. No, it's both love and all these things. And at some point, it ends up working because you're so focused on it, diba? And obviously, if you don't get it, it's fine. But at least you're pointing towards that direction. So I made a lot of career decisions because of those. How do I check off this bucket list I had of things I wanted to do before 30? And very few of my friends, my classmates, even in high school and college, knew what they wanted to do when they turned 30, right? Or when they were 25 or 22 or 21. But that's why I'm encouraging everyone here listening, right? The thousand something is even write down like what are the three things that even if it sounds crazy, um, write something down because you never know what could happen, right? So that's like what really helped me in my career. And that's why when someone like MVP asked me, what do you want to do in life? It was easy to talk to him, right? Um,
Wow, thank you for that tips. Thank you. So you have a bucket list, no? Tapos sabi nga din nila, di ba, Earl, parang be specific with your goals para alam mo paano siya abutin.
yeah, yun nga eh. I mean, I really said na I wanted ano yung mga places I wanted to go vacation with, sabi ko I want to go to Spain and to Czech Republic, Mexico. I don't know, nakita ko lang kasi sa TV. So sabi ko
Earl,
one day I'll
question.
go there.
Yun dun ba sa love
Sure.
life, yung nakalagay about love life, nag-manifest at nangyari?
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, it's funny. So I had this crush in high school, who was my prom date. Pero sorry, she went kasi to Ateneo and I went to UP. So UP Engineering. So the worlds collide, syempre, and wala na. But after a few years, parang nag-reconnect ulit kami. Then obviously we got married after. So yeah,
Wow.
so I was very specific. My crush in high
Wow.
school. But it's obviously not for everybody, right? Like it's just like a something that I never knew was gonna happen. So
Yeah, correct. All right, okay. Earl, may gusto mag-send sa atin ng message of thought from Wendell Villapania. Such a passionate man, Sir Earl. Thanks for the tips and some hacks on how to deal with our goals and dream. Good afternoon, everyone from Pampanga State Agricultural University. Okay, ito Earl from Jesserbert Yambot. Jesbert Yambot, okay? What is are your advice? Wait lang, it's moving. What is or your advice for the students who have low confidence with this profession, BSCS? Where do we start, or what we should seek to be as successful as? Wait, it's moving as you are. Jesbert Yambot, Holy
sure,
Cross
of
College.
course. Yeah, so I'll tell you something, no? Kunyari, even in Plantina, one of our top engineers is from University of Baguio, right? Actually, our best engineer, our director of engineering. And I've seen also people from all over the world from different backgrounds. And, what is the difference between someone who is from a top school and not a top school in the field of technology is
Mhm.
actually nothing, right? Because technology levels the playing field, right? Because it's really your output, right? So kunyari, the demand now is so high for computer science, right? To build web apps, mobile apps, right? Data structures, etc. Like there's so much demand in the world that, you know, sabi ko nga, technology careers is the ultimate meritocracy. Meritocracy is anybody could have a chance, no? To become like the world's best if you just put your time into practicing, into building things, right? Like building apps, doing things, doing projects. That's how you get good, right? And so, what's low confidence? So low confidence happens because if you're just not sure if you're doing it at the right, the right quality, right? But in the end, you just have to start small, start more projects.
Mhm.
Someone's going to give you feedback, do it again over and over and over and get certifications, do trainings, right? Like it's even if you just go to like YouTube, right? There's so many trainings you can see. There's Coursera, right? Like it's an amazing world now. Like I wish when I was in, funny, graduated in early 2000s, right? I was in UP 1999 as a student. Um, all of these things weren't available, right? So the only path towards becoming an engineer is to actually go through engineering school, right? But now, like, there's so much, resources for you to practice, to get projects, to do stuff, right? Like even building like your town mobile app, that's cool, right? So your school's mobile app just for fun, or meron nga ng pitch akin before, the tambay app, an app lang na pang-tambay lang, right? Like do something like that and then practice. At some point you're going to be the best in the world, right? So I'm excited for all of you again because this is like IT, technology, computer science, engineering are the hottest fields on earth today, right? So you guys are in a good spot, and don't nobody really cares, right? What school you're from, as long as you deliver good code, right? So
Thank you so much, Earl, for sharing that. Okay, so since we are managing our time, no, we will accommodate one last question. Okay, I
sure,
think
last
Earl very
question. Yeah,
interested sila. Yes, very interested sila sa tips mo and advice on how to be a successful person like you. Very inspiring, Sir Earl. Sabi ni JR Dultiao. Thank you for motivating us. God bless po, sir. Sabi niya. Wow. Thank you very much. Okay. Eto, sige, yes. Mostly talaga more on ano talagang mapapayo mo sa kanila, especially dito sa they're in the IT industry. But sige, kuha tayo dito ng ito. Sige, very timely din to for our students and participants from John Vitog. What advice can you give for us students who starting to find our chosen track kind of interesting due to the current learning approach we're taking. Kasi 'di ba, we're online right
mm.
now. So it's
Oo.
nag-a-adjust pa yung ibang students. So it's challenging. So what advice can you give to, keep them motivated?
Yeah, I think for me is um two things, no? One is discipline, one is community, right? Like discipline means na yun nga, if you're so focused on this goal that I told you guys about, on your 5 or 10 year goal, there is a reason now why you're doing it. Right? Ako kasi for me, my reason was to become an aerospace engineer and astronaut. That was my reason. So every math problem I told myself, this will help me become an astronaut. It was really strange, but it really helped me because like, doing this math hard calculus and stuff, parang sabi ko, what am I doing this for? Diba? Pero I just had this motivation na, so kunya now, especially pandemic, like, why am I gonna go to this class? Alam mo yun? Sakit sa ulo, diba? But because you're doing it for something, right? Maybe it's for your family, for your career, etc., right? So that's one. That's discipline and focus. The next one is community, right? Like just again, one of my 4 points in my challenge, my number 4 point is build your friendship around you that actually is people that will pull you up, no? Parang kunyari, nagsa-study ka, Hindi yun mga, oh, wag ka na mag-study, di ba? Tambay na lang, chill out na lang tayo. Oh, it's okay, balance, di ba? But you want people to be around you na parang, you know what, wait, I think I'm gonna code something. What do you think? Oh, sige, ako, I might code, or sige, I'll give you feedback, or whatever, right? So I think you just have to be around people that are as motivated as you. So even during the online thing, minsan check up lang, di ba? Minsan kaya ngayon lang may message sa akin na, oy, how are things? Check up on you. Ano yung new project mo? Parang ganun. So you just have to be around people that are your community of what I call as motivation, right? Because without that during the online time, parang alam mo yan, mawawala ka eh, right? So discipline and focus, and then the other one is community, and maybe that's like my last advice, right? Especially during the pandemic, of them out of this post-pandemic as a better person.
All right. Thank you very much, Earl. Thank you for sharing your generous tips about being a successful person like you. Thank you very much. So I guess that's it for our Q&A for Earl. Thank you, Earl, for joining us today. Bye. Thank you so much. All right, guys, I'd like to remind everyone that for your questions, please send it in our Q&A chat box. Kasi pag doon tayo sa chat, baka hindi natin mabasa lahat. So please, doon tayo sa my Q&A chat box natin. All right? Okay. So let's move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is the director for the Philippine Software Industry Association and has been sharing more than 20 years of experience on technology, entrepreneurship as an adjunct faculty for the Asian Institute of Management. He founded Blast Asia in 2001 and continues to work on making technology work for businesses to make life better and easier for everyone it touches. Please welcome Mr. Arup Maiti.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Let me try to share the screen. So, Kena, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. We can see your screen now.
All right. Thank you very much. So that was a great talk from Earl. You know, we have been working together for this growing the industry from the time he came here and been working on. And today, this is, I feel like a continuation of a lot of this discussion we have in the ecosystem development as founders, myself, as well as, you know, with various students and others across the industry. So let me get started by giving you a little bit of background on me. So I have been at this for some time now. So I did my engineering in India. That was in 1993. Over the years, I came to Philippines in 97. I graduated in 97 rather from AIM. Started my first company. Well, actually it was second. There was another one that never reached anywhere. That was a .com. The first company that has been growing and thriving and what has been something I have been involved with the last 20 years is Blast Asia. We are a 130-person team. I have been also teaching at AIM since 2005, project management, technology innovation, digital transformation, etc. I also recently got into creating this entity called Spring PH, which has been instrumental in helping the ecosystem grow in terms of startup, helping companies or individuals, whoever are trying to get into startups. So that's where we talked a lot with Earl over the years. And we also started our own startup that's called Steer, something that a couple of years ago, right on time of the COVID. And it has been interesting path, ups and downs. We also did some fundraising and we raised about $800,000 so far, and we are moving ahead with that project. But it's not so much about me. I'd like to focus the rest of my time here to give you guys an idea on what is a startup and what it is not also, and touch on things that probably are misconceptions around. So one of the first thing that, if you are a member of something like a Startup PH, one of the most active startup group on Facebook, one of the most debated topic is like, what is a startup? And I bet even if you talk about it today, you'll get various different answers. So I'm just putting some of the understanding of how Silicon Valley and the rest of the world defines a startup, and what it is and what it is not, right? So that's my first slide to start with. So if you look at it, there are two kinds of business, right? So one is what we call a startup, where the business model is not validated, meaning it's not something that has been done in the exact form and format you're thinking of doing. So that's one. Um, can you still see my screen? Sorry, I'm just distracted here.
We
Okay.
can
Yes,
see
we
it.
can see your screen.
We can see it.
All right. Okay. And the second is what we call scale up. So scale up is an existing business model. So let's take an example, right? So a lot of you might, okay, there's something wrong with that, but okay, let's go with that. Something went wrong with my slide, but basically there are things like, let's say, selling cupcakes online, right? So which is more like what you call a small business. So if someone makes cupcake at home and takes order through, let's say, Facebook and Viber, and sends it through, for example, let's say Lala Move or something, that's actually an example of small business. It's not exactly a startup. Now, then what is a scale up? So a scale up would be something like, let's say, a bakery chain like Conti's. So which is also kind of baking cakes and baked goods, but they're growing it, and they have taken external money. They have many stores. Maybe they're franchising it out, and you can also buy it online if you order from them. So that's an example of a scale up. So the business of baking and selling is not a new business, right? It's a proven business model. Now, if you want to do a startup in this, obviously there can be so many things, but I kind of put together an idea here. For example, let's say you come up with the idea like, okay, a lot of us in the lockdown and all, sitting at home, we want to do baking. And while doing baking, you realize that there's so many different things you need to bake well. Like, you want to make a great, I don't know, blueberry cheesecake, but you need like so many ingredients and things to mix, and you may not have it, or even if you try to order it online, you probably won't get it from one grocery. So what if there's a business model where someone can go to your website, choose, I want to make blueberry cheesecake, and good for 10% at home, and then you just get a box sent to you with all the ingredients in it, and then you can just prepare and bake it yourself. So that is a new business model. That's still in the area of baking. You're still doing it online, but we don't know if this will work as a business. So it's something which would be considered a startup. And there are, by the way, there are startups like this, something similar and different. One of the most popular one in New York is one called Blue Apron. So, if you want to cook gourmet food, you can actually order, and everything comes in a box in the right proportion, and you can take it from there. So that's an example. I hope I was able to clear it, but we'll deal with it more as we move forward on the question answer section, perhaps, or the panel later in the afternoon. Now, I don't know how much you know about, but startup ecosystem in Philippines have been looking great. I mean, if you look at this image, there are, this was something we did a survey last year, 2020, and we recorded 562 startups in various different segments. And interestingly, there has been many more that have joined in, including like Earl's startup is not counted here. So there's been a bigger and growing number in the system. So we are not something, and we don't have to go to Silicon Valley, or you don't have to go to Singapore or some other place to do a startup. You could do it right out of your bedroom today, if not a garage. And there's plenty others who are doing it and at various different stages. In fact, a lot of them have raised good amount of funding. I'll talk about that a bit later. So now the question would be, so what do I need? How do I get started, right? So Earl was talking about this great, you need to have a good circle of friends who can support your ideas and dreams and help you with that. So in our language of startups, we need three kinds of person, maybe friends. One is what you call a hacker, which is someone who can program, right? Don't go with the bad connotation of hacker. This is related to someone who can write codes and build stuff, right? So this is about having a hacker in the team. The second is what you call a hustler, who's basically someone who's good at selling. I mean, a lot of time you'll have someone who's great at programming, but you are not so comfortable talking to customers and selling. So that's where the role of a hustler comes in, someone who's great at selling. And there is the third one, which is basically the hipster or the designer, who's basically can write the story. So, a product is built by the hacker, the hustler can bring it in front of the customer, but you need to be able to say the story of what you're selling and how it will help that business, your customer, in a very easy to understand format that they would remember. So that's basically marketing. So hipster is the third person you need in the team. Now, it's not necessary that every startup needs all three or all three separate. Maybe, you may have someone who is great at marketing and sales both, while you have the second person who is great at programming, and that will do. But those are the three kind of roles that is needed. Now, this is an important slide to understand. And I'll give you the names of the books and all that you can study further later. This being a 101, where I'm just trying to introduce you the topic. If you look at a journey of a startup, and a lot of time you kind of wonder, like, okay, I got that. For example, that idea of, on-demand baking box, right? How do I go about it? Where will I start? And what are the different stages in the life cycle of a startup that you go through? So usually you start with an idea. For example, like you say, that box of baking. The first thing is to identify who will be your customer, who actually thinks that they need it. So that's basically what we call a customer discovery phase. So that's the phase one, where you try to identify who could possibly be looking at, for example, in that idea, want to bake at home and would want to buy ingredients in the right proportion sent to them. Now that's a vague idea, and you kind of talk to the customer and you find out, and you make some what you call minimum viable product proposals to see if they want. Now that moves to the next phase. So in the first phase, it's more of exploration, trying to find out, is there enough people who really want to bake at home and would buy if we have an offer like this? Now, once you have talked to enough people and you kind of identified, okay, yeah, there's enough. Then the next phase is where you kind of test the offer. So you kind of try to reach out to them and say, hey, you can tell me what you want, and I will send you all the ingredients. I have my team who can shop it for you and send it over to your home. And it will cost you this much. Would you like to go for it? Now, at this stage, you haven't probably even built a product yet. You can test out the idea. And if some of those who said, yeah, I'm interested, is now ready to take out their wallet and pay for it, then that's basically a customer validation. So step two. Now, in the beginning, you probably spoke with 10 or 20 people, and you probably were able to sell to 5, 10 among them who wanted to buy. But that's not good enough to run a business and be successful, right? So that's where the next stage of customer creation comes in, where you now try to figure, how do I sell it to 1,000 people a month or 10,000 people by next year, right? So that's the scaling. And that's where a whole different thought process comes in. And it's not, I mean, earlier when you're doing 5 or 10, it was easy. You can just, go over to the grocery, some other places, put it in a box manually and ship it by Lalamove. But if you're shipping 500 orders a day, you got to figure how to do it. There's the whole operation issue comes in. Maybe you cannot even buy from one store. So where do you buy it from? So whole lot of different things fits in. Maybe, you're getting now orders from outside Metro Manila. How do you send it over? So that's where the scaling challenges come in. And once you have figured that out, then comes the question of, or perhaps part of it together with the step 3 comes the company building. Now, this is where you start hiring more professionals who have experience. You start having titles like, vice president of operation or vice president of sales, etc. And you start building it like a company. You have HR proper, you have all of those. So that's basically the 4 stages a startup goes through. Now, not everyone reaches all this stage. A lot of startups probably never go past the first 2 stage. But we'll talk more about it moving forward. So just to give you an idea, what I just said before, if every startup starts with an idea, and an idea is probably worth nothing, as people say. A lot of time people think that, oh, I had a great idea and I'm not going to share. Well, in the space of software, we know ideas actually have zero value until you're doing something on it to make it a product. So a product is something where the customer actually wants it, right? So you figure out what they want. Now, it turns into a business only once what they want, they're ready to pay for it. Because there might be certain things people want, but they're not ready to pay for it. So it's not a business till they're ready to pay for it, and you can make enough profit out of it. And once you can do this in a sustained, regular, extended period of time, that becomes a real business, or asset rather, a company where you can probably one day sell it and you hear about exits and making a lot of money, etc. And that happens once your entire business has become an asset in itself. So what are the attributes of a good product, right? So obviously, like I said before, that the customer should see a value. They should see it to be useful, right? The next is, there are a lot of time you have product, but very difficult to explain quickly to the customer, or even if you explain, they don't understand. So it has to be something that you can easily explain, and they should be able to grasp the value of what you're offering quickly. Now, this is where this is difficult to make it very useful yet simple. But that's where we all do in startup, to make it simple enough, right? It has to be simple enough that they should not get intimidated from using it. And the next important aspect is it should be something that you can scale. You cannot you cannot have a startup that can become an asset if every sale you make, it becomes so hard to implement, and so much support and so many things that goes into it. So scalability is key. And lastly, retention. Your customers who use it, how do you ensure that they stay with you and not leave you or go around shopping or getting from multiple other customers or sellers of same kind? So how do you make it habit forming? I mean, today everyone still talks about how much they hate spending time on Facebook, but we all still go back there and criticize Facebook on Facebook. Now that's what you call a habit generating product. We may not like it, but somehow we are compelled to use it. So that's basically a triangle to show the various the 5 key aspects of a good product. Okay, now these are some of the terminologies that you will keep hearing a lot. And so one is called TAM, or basically total available market. So let's say if you're talking about a restaurant business, or say bakery, like what we were talking about. So anyone who eats baked goods is the total available market. But then you go to the next level, what you call serviceable available market. So the serviceable market would be those people who likes to eat bakery goods, but who wants to also bake it themselves and have disposable money for it. Because if everyone wants to eat, but if they don't have money, then they're not your market, right? And then comes the last one, which you call SOM, or serviceable obtainable market, which is basically those that are within reach of your business. Like you can reach out to them and sell to them, and they can easily avail of the goods on a regular basis. So that's what you call SOM. So this is typically what you want to go by. And at this slide, I would want to also bring up one observation I have. You see, building a startup is really hard. It's really difficult. It takes long. It takes a lot of effort to do it. So when you do it, have a bigger ambition. Don't build a startup which is only good for a small TAM. So this is an old slide. Probably more than $1 billion is an ideal TAM, or a market size that's big enough, so that if and when you are successful after working so hard on it, it has a potential to be sizable and perhaps global. But that's a good measure to see if what you're trying to address has a TAM of at least $1 billion. Now you may say, okay, Arup, so okay, fine, I have an idea, I want to go for it. How do you start? What is it? How do you get the first 10 customers? So going back to that same, the first is customer validation, right? Customer discovery. So discovery is when you go out and listen. So you identify a certain set of customer who has a pain. For example, they want to bake at home, but they can't, or it's very difficult to find all the ingredients easily. And second, you have to check if they're really trying to solve the problem, because some may say, yeah, actually it's a problem, but then you ask, okay, do you want me to solve it? And then not really, I don't have time to bake. So obviously then while there may be a segment who bakes at times, maybe they have the problem, but they're not trying to solve it. So you need to also identify someone who is trying to solve it and probably is not successful in solving it well today. Maybe they're trying to do it through Lazada, and somehow it hasn't been a great experience. Maybe when they buy the ingredients are a lot or whatever, they will tell you that. So that listening part is the first part. Then the next part is validation, where you kind of, like in real estate, you pre-sell the idea. So you come back to those who said, yeah, I want it. And then you say, okay, here, can I supply this to you? If you are so interested, I can buy and send this to you, and you pay me. And if they say, yeah, okay, that sounds good, that's basically the validation. And then, only then, you start building something in terms of software. Now, a lot of time, a lot of startup, including some of us, we make the mistake of trying to build a product before even reaching out and asking all of those questions, right? So that's definitely not the right way to go about. You kind of do the step 1 and 2 before you start building something to bring to them. The key point in this is just enough building. You don't build more than what is needed, right? Um, and lastly, enhance only what is in demand. Okay, I got a couple of more slides. And once you have started selling it to your first 10 or 15 customers, you are what you call, and these are the ones who will buy from you, are what we call the innovators and early adopters. So the innovators and early adopters are those who are, they're more open to things, experimenting and all. And a lot of startups actually find those 5, 10 initial customers, and that's easy. But that is just the start of the business or the problem. You do not have a real business till you get the stage 3, or what we call the early majority. Now, this early majority are more skeptical people. They don't just buy from anyone. And while they are interested in observing the innovators, early adopters, they hear out what's being talked about. They want some proof of execution. They want, that there is a set of happy customers before they actually want to buy. And a lot of startups do not survive jumping from the first 2 stage to the next stage. That's why it's called the chasm. And this is where, I don't know, about 60-70% or more of the startups really die. Once you get through the early majority, then comes the late majority. So these late majorities are the more skeptical, and they only come in a bit later. So I'll hold on to that. And let's try to identify, how do you identify the early majority, right? So the early adopters as well as the early majority, how do you define them? So typically, this is where you need to actually have one small group who have the same problem and same need. And ideally, they talk to each other. Because remember, one of the most important stage here is referenceability, meaning the others, those late adopters as well as the early majority, should be able to look and find others who are using it. So you can use them as a reference, because they're not going to buy something from a startup until you have a proof that it works and works well. So this is one of the biggest learning I had, and this is the hardest discussion I have with startups when I'm talking to them. At this stage, while moving from the early adopters to early majority, it's a counterintuitive step of going small. So you go big, or you grow the business to big by going small first. So at this stage, you try to identify a really small niche segment of the market where you can go in and you can create an early impact, where there is not too many competition, right? So you need to get out of the bigger area. And while your goals and ambitions and the TAM and SOM we talked about, Sam, would be there and you will grow to that, but you need to start with something small that you can win and be the referenceable market leader first. Okay, last couple of slides. So one of the thing, and OPM is a popular term in the Silicon Valley language, which basically means not the songs, but the other people's money. So at this stage, some of you might say, but Arup, I probably don't have that kind of money, right? I mean, how do I do startup? So the point of startup is typically you should have a goal of building your startup with other people's money. And it's not so much about being selfish or anything, but it's actually a very good validation tool because, more you talk to people about your idea and get money out of them, you are getting good criticism, which validates your product, as well as you're getting champions for your business who will actually also help you get customers. So these are the four, there are more stages, but these are the four big stages. Pre-seed, you can start with friends and family, angel investor, tech incubators. The next stage is when you call it the seed funding, where you already build the product, trying to scale and grow it. So that's where you have the accelerators, angels, seed funds. And then stage 3 is where you go to the VCs. A lot of time mistake startups do is they are kind of at an early stage of the idea and they start trying to talk to VCs, and that can be a lot of waste of time. Though, in the startup world, nothing is absolute. Sometime maybe it will work talking to a VC and he will fund you right from the pre-seed, but typically this is the sequence. And lastly, once it's all doing great, your dream is to basically list the company on a stock exchange. Now, I want to show you this slide. This is the second to last slide, which talks about this huge ecosystem that has grown in Philippines, and all of this are there to support you. These are the people who will fund you and support you, and this is all existing in our Philippines ecosystem. You can reach out to any of them depending on the right fit at where you are, and you can get support, funding, etc. So it's a evolving and has become quite a good ecosystem. And if you are doing your startup, they can definitely help. These are the 3 books that I would recommend. I have shared the slides, and the organizers might be able to share that with you so you can go back to them, look at them. But if you're doing startup and maybe you like reading or you don't, I do encourage you to at least spend time in reading these 3 books, which will help you a lot of money and heartaches down the line. And that's about all I have here. Went about the time a little bit. But I would like to end by saying, today is the best time to get started. If you want to do a startup, don't delay, don't wait. As soon as you graduate, or even while you are graduating, you can start thinking about your idea, validating and building, because it's a great experience. It's not an easy experience, I would have to say this. It's probably one of the most difficult career choices you will take, but it can be immensely satisfying, and it could be something that you can build. And even if you fail, you have so much experience and you become so much valuable for other companies who would want to get you. That's about it. Thank you. Feel free to reach out to me on my LinkedIn, and I would like to continue the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mighty. The best time to start a startup is now. Thank you very much for that inspiring talk. All right. Okay. But Mr. Mighty, to manage the time, we will be accommodating the questions related to this talk, related to Startup 101 later in our panel discussion. All right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you very much, Mr. Mighty. Thank you for gracing our event. See you later.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Okay. So hello guys. Kamusta naman ang ating participants? Hello, hello. Can you send me a red emoji if you're doing well, guys? Kung okay kayo dyan sa inyo. Wow. Thank you, Rubniel. Thank you, Ren, Mary J. Wow, my heart pa. Yan, Selena, Vince, Marjorie, Charmaine, thank you very much. Thank you. Alright, okay. Meron din nagtag sa akin sa Y4IT, sa atin sa Y4IT sa Instagram, si Rosen May. Sabi niya sa atin, pa-shoutout naman po sa school namin, ma'am. Please, sana po manotice niyo po ulit. ICT, ED, Institute of Science and Technology in Lipa, Batangas. Hello, hi everyone. Stay safe. Medyo maulan po sa ibang parte ng Pilipinas. Ingat po. Ayan, shoutout sa University of Eastern Pangasinan kay Sir Sev at Sir Soriano. Hello po, sirs. Ayan, good afternoon po from PUP Calauan. Ang dami. Okay lang, fighting for the sake of Pitinians, sabi ni Herbert. Okay. Shout out po kay Ma'am Agnes. Hi, Ma'am Agnes. All right, okay. So now let's proceed to our next speaker. Now for our next speaker, we have the director of the ICT Industry Bureau of the ICT. Please welcome Director Emmy Delfin.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Wow, this is so overwhelming. This is my first time to actually participate in this 1,700 participants. Now, I've been talking to the different events, but this is my first time to have this huge participants. So, first of all, good afternoon po sa lahat. And to the organizer for today's event, through the leadership of the president of VPS ITF, my former boss and my mentor, Yusek Mon Ibrahim. You know, I cannot say no to him. Kaya despite the very busy schedule of our bureau and the DICT, I have to be here because baka pagalitan niya ako. So good afternoon po to my fellow speakers. Same people po. They're the same people that we've been working with for many years, trying to promote and develop the Philippine startup ecosystem. So hi to Earl. It's nice to see you again. Arup, sir, hi. I'm not sure if Cess is here from Impact Hub. Of course, Dave and Andre, good afternoon. And to all the participants from all over the country, siguro say hi. I would like to say hi to those participants from Region 8, sa mga Waray, sa mga Bisaya, good afternoon. To all the students, the academe, mostly I know lahat po dito from the academe, from teachers, no? So magandang good hapon sa inyong lahat. Okay, so this afternoon, I'm going to share with you the DICT Startup Program. As kanina, Arup shared the different accelerators, supporters of the startup ecosystem, pero nakita ko hindi niya sinama doon yung government agencies. And this is very timely and exciting because finally, with the passage now of the Innovative Startup Law, the three agencies, DTI, DOST, and DICT will be the lead agencies in the implementation of One Philippine Startup Development Program. So let me share with you now my, okay. All right. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am, we can see your screen.
All right. So I'm here to present to you the Digital Startup Development Program of the DICT. And you know, we've been implementing the startup program since way back in 2013, together with the people here, Arup, Earl, Dave, no, and now recently sila Ignite. But I'm very glad that we're here because I have a lot of great announcements, no, opportunities for the students, particularly lahat po sa academe dito. So I hope I'll have enough time to present all our programs in the next 15 minutes. Okay, so very quickly, before I share with you the specific details of our program, I'd just like to share with you the role of DICT in making the Philippines a key significant player in the global digital economy. So nasaan dito ngayon? Okay, so this is the chief framework, no? This is based on the World Bank's Digital Economy Report. So we adopted for us to be able to participate in the new normal, for us to be able to embrace digital transformation. So yung CHIP stands for letter C, Connect, which is about building the digital infrastructure foundation. So lahat po ng aming programs o National Broadband Program, Free Wi-Fi, are under the letter C, or Connect. And then let's go to H, which is Harness. So it's about investing in digital education, skills, and jobs. So we've been implementing upskilling and reskilling program for all the people, for the government, for the business, for the ICT industry, for the marginalized sector. So lahat yon are under letter H, or Harness. And then let's go to letter I, which is Innovate. Innovate is about expanding digital government and business services. In fact, the DICT has a critical role in really helping government agencies, local government units in trying to embrace digital transformation to be able to serve their constituents. And under Innovate, specifically, dito po nagpo-fall yung aming digital startup program. So nandiyan, no, expanding digital government and business services. So later, I'm going to share with you that DSTAP. And then lastly, letter P, which is protect, is about mitigating the risks in a digital economy. So we have different initiatives to make sure that we're all safe and secure in our digital, in all the transactions that we do online. Okay, so siguro very quickly, how is the Philippines doing in terms of the global startup ecosystem? So just recently, Startup Genome actually released this. Medyo hindi siya okay because last year, in 2020, we are part of the 21 to 30 range, but 91 ngayon to 100. It means that the other countries are also doing their best to make sure that they're part of the global startup ecosystem ranking. But again, good news naman to, as you can see here. So in terms of our startup ecosystem valuation, so there's 584 million US dollars. Ayan, so these are the different figures. Good news about the Philippines. So in other words, we're actually improving naman. But the question really is, while other ASEAN countries are there up, no? So how can the Philippines improve our ranking? And for us to be able to do that, we have to work together. And the academe has a very critical role in making sure that we will be improving our ranking. So ayan, makinig kayo ma'am ngayon sa aking lecture. Okay, so there's another global startup ranking, and this is also good news because the Philippines ranked number 52 in 2021. So in 2020, we're number 53. So in other words, nag-improve tayo. And that's also really good news. But again, the question is, how can we make sure we belong to the top 20 or top 10 in the global startup ecosystem ranking? So that's really a challenge for everyone because we should work together, collaborate together to make sure that we will be really part of the top 20 or top 10 global startup ecosystem ranking. And also good news because there are 5 cities that are part of the ranking. So we have Manila, of course, kasama yan sa top 20 ranked cities in the world. And then we have Cebu, Cagayan de Oro, Davao City, and Baguio. So yung mga participants from these places, congratulations, you're part of this global ranking. Okay, so let me go now to the initiatives of the 3 agencies. We started implementing our startup program. Bago pa kami naging DICT, dati pa kami Commission on ICT and then ICTO under DOST. We've been implementing different initiatives for the startup and the startup ecosystem. And other agencies are doing also their own programs. But in 2018, the 3 agencies, DTI, DOST, and DICT, agreed that instead of us, making our own programs separately or in silos, why can't we just work together as one whole of government to be able to support the Philippine startups and the startup ecosystem? So in 2018, the 3 agencies signed an MOU to further support the Philippine startups. So in that MOU, we all agreed, the 3 agencies agreed, that we will have one Philippine startup development program for the entire country. And mas lalong good news because in 2019, President Duterte signed the Innovative Startup Law, which actually provides benefits and programs to strengthen, promote, and develop the Philippine startup ecosystem. And again, tuloy-tuloy lang that we have to continue implementing, developing programs as one government towards creating that Philippine Startup Development Program. So the 3 agencies under the law are mandated to lead in the development, implementation, and monitoring of the startup program for the country so that we'll be able to produce globally successful startups. As mentioned earlier, Arup said that there are 562 startups in the country, and we hope to have thousands of startups. And we would like to encourage the participants, the students here, to explore, to become successful startups yourselves. As mentioned kanina by Earl and Darup, that you just have to dream big, right? So yan. Okay, and so the three agencies, to be able to really work closely, the three agencies signed a joint administrative order creating a steering committee composed. So nakita nyo yung aming tatlong secretaries from Secretary Hunasan from DICT, Secretary Lopez from DTI, and Secretary De La Peña from TOST. And these are our undersecretaries will actually members now of the steering committee. So we meet regularly to be able to make sure that all the initiatives should really be implemented. No? Ayan. So very quickly, what we did was to actually map out the different initiatives of the three agencies to make sure that we are all aligned and we are working seamlessly. Ayan. So as you can see here, the lighter green ones are the ones being implemented by the DICT, which I'm going to discuss later. And the medyo greener ones are being implemented by DOST. Ano to, blue-green ba to? The ones being implemented by DTI. Even the blue ones are being implemented by the DOST. So in terms of the pre-seed advocacy and seed stages of startup, that will be actually the role both of DOST and DICT. So karamihan ng mga initiatives namin are under the pre-seed fund, seed fund stage or formation or validation. But pag scaling up na, promotion na, that will be the role of the Department of Trade and Industry. Ayan. So because of that mandate, but as I mentioned, we've been implementing before a program called CPH. At yan po ang aking former boss, Yusek Mon Ibrahim. Siya po yung brains behind that CPH program. And we're still continue implementing that, but under a component na lang of a bigger startup program, because yun nga, under the law, we are mandated to really implement different initiatives. And these are the objectives. No? But basically, the goal really is to establish a strong Philippine startup ecosystem by providing support to the Filipino startups. And so there are 4 subcomponents or sub-programs under the Digital Startup Development and Acceleration Program. Masyadong mahaba. We call it DSDAP. And it's composed of 4 sub-programs or components. And these are the 4 programs, sub-programs. One is the Philippine Startup Portal. Second is establishment of innovation studios or co-working spaces. Third is the provision of startup grant fund. And then the last one is the establishment of innovation networks. Ayan, let me go through each one. Under the Innovative Startup Law, the DICT is mandated to maintain, develop, and maintain one Philippine startup portal so that all the information should be in this portal. Soon, we are going to launch this in November. Later, I'm going to invite you to join us in the Philippine Startup Week. It's a week-long celebration of all the different startup initiatives of the country featuring successful startups. So we're inviting everyone to participate in that. Libre po yon, yung Philippine Startup Week event namin. And so under this portal, all the information, even those startups that have been mentioned by Arup earlier, should be in this portal. Even the application, if you want to become startup, if you want to actually avail of the grants and initiative incentives of the 3 agencies, you can just go to this portal and register online. So soon we are going to launch this. Right now, it's just static informational pa lang, all the activities under the Philippine startup programs nandito siya. But eventually, as we launch it, dapat transactional na siya. So if you want to avail of the grants, etc., you just have to go to this portal. So yan yung yung login. So may login details, you have to register and log in. Okay, the second component of DSDAP is the establishment of innovation studios in the different parts of the country. So yung DICT kasi, before yung AMI pang minana na telecommunication office, we have a lot of spaces in different parts of the country, and we want to make use of them, of those spaces. So by making them into innovation studios or co-working spaces. And to be able to accommodate startups who want to use that studio that will be actually equipped with advanced software and hardware equipment. And right now, our target is to be able to have a pilot in Baguio. So we ask an architect to come up with a design. So ito, as you can see here, dapat ito yung gagawin namin sa Baguio. But last year, medyo because of COVID, we had to realign our budget. But this should be the design, the look and feel of the innovation studio or co-working spaces. And these are all for free if you want to. Ayan, so this is the interior perspective. Ang ganda, no? Very colorful. So you'll have meeting rooms there if you want to have a conference room, conference meetings, one-on-one meetings. Ayan. So ito po yun. And we hope to have that one pilot hub in Baguio City. And then the third one, yung pala, dun sa co-working space or innovation studio, we would like to have, anong tawag dito, an in-house mentors, no? So that if you want to talk to our in-house mentors, you can just get some advice from them. Okay, so this is the third component, which is the provision of startup grant fund. Under the law, we are also mandated to provide grants for for startups or individuals who want to pursue to become startups. And we have already finalized the guidelines, but of course, we are going to call for a public hearing or consultation so that we can gather all the inputs and comments of the public so that we can have really a very effective and useful guideline so that magagamit talaga yung grant galing sa government. So part of the grant will go to, for example, the design, development, validation na kailangan maging so yung tawag dito, kailangan talagang ma-translate into actual business yung ideas na ibibigay or isa-submit sa amin. And part of our grant is also the registration and cost in the application and processing of permits, even the use of facilities, even the registration fees for the participation of startups in local international events competition. Those will be actually part of the grants that we will be providing. So soon, we hope to have at least 50 startups to be able to avail of the grant only for this year. So it's going to be yearly, and it's also the mandate of DTI and DOST to be able to also to provide grants for the startups. So marami pong mabibigyan ng tulong. Then the last subcomponent is the innovation network. This is basically to establish networks of Filipino innovators across the country, coming up, changing the cultural mindset, in ICT. So the academe, the local government units, the private sector are in this part of the network to be able to really have a very vibrant Philippine startup ecosystem. And I mentioned earlier that for the many past years, we've been implementing the SeedPH program. Actually, that SeedPH program now is the End of Nation Network, which is subcomponent of the DSDAP. And all the activities, the workshops, the conferences will be under this subcomponent. And if I may go to the different activities under this End of Nation component, for example, one major initiative is the conduct of startup mapping. Together with Kubo and Davis here, he's also going to share this later. We are going to go to the different cities to be able to really map, come up with a study, kumusta naman yung readiness or the development or understanding ng bawat city. Kumusta yung ecosystem doon? So because that's a very basic thing that we have to do to be able to also know ano ba yung kinds of intervention that government and the private sector can actually help a particular city. So We are going to launch this. Dave, you can see this. So this is a partnership by Kubo and the ICT. So for this year, we have to get, Kubo is the one leading this in partnership with us. Sorry, nasa na? Okay, sige. So we have selected 5 cities to be able to conduct the startup mapping. But basically, we've done this before. What we would like to do is to really map out the different ecosystem situation of the different cities to be able for us to know what kinds of intervention can we actually bring, no, to those cities. And we've been doing this, the Startup 101. So if you want to understand better how to become startup, how to develop an idea, how to validate an idea, so nandito po lahat yon. And we would like to invite the participants because we have a lot of workshops like this in the next few months. And we also have Startup 102. So kung gusto niyo pang mas maintindihan pa, yung 101 basically basics lang, yung understanding what startup. 102 medyo detailed na siya. So if you want to pursue further, then you can participate in the Startup 102 workshop. And so far for this year, together with our partners, we have conducted different workshops from all over the country, no, in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and we hope to continue doing this. Marami pa pong schedule for this year and definitely next year. So, yung details no nasa DICT Facebook page namin. We're also conducting startup coaching and mentoring for those individuals and startup aspiring startup founders who want to really understand the stages, no, product development, etc. So you just have to join this startup coaching and mentoring. And then the Mentors Bootcamp, this is intended for teachers or faculty members who want to be part of that pool of mentors and who can become the mentors, no, for their students. In fact, this is good news because we have now a partnership with PSITE. I'm sure marami ding PSITE members dito from the faculty and the schools, no, members of PSITE. And we have agreed that we are going to conduct the Startup Mentors Bootcamp on November 9 to 10. So this is actually free, no? And we will also conduct island startup workshops in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So these are the schedule of those workshops. So if you want to participate, you can join us. This is all for free. And the reason why we're conducting the Startup Mentors Bootcamp, because of the Philippine Startup Challenge. But aside from those, we are also conducting learning sessions, mga startup kapihan, startup meetups in the different parts of the country through our regional offices. And as I mentioned, part of the conferences that we are doing, very major activity that we have in partnership with Kubo again, with the 2 agencies, DTI and DOST, we are going to have, this is our third, this is an annual thing, no? This is our third year conducting the Philippine Startup Week. So this is the Philippines' largest startup conference. So we'd like to invite everyone to participate. Just have to phstartupweek.com to be able to register. And I think Dave will have more details on this, no? Okay, and for the Philippine Startup Week, each agency, for example, DICT will have our own DICT Day on November 16. So we are going to have panel discussions. We are going to feature game-related startups. And we are going to feature our successful winners of our Philippine Startup Challenge. So it's an annual pitching competition na talagang from just students, no, and they proceed, no, they pursued, and now they're very successful startups na. We will be inviting those so that they can actually share their opportunities, no, their best practices. Yan. And then in the afternoon, we are going to have our Philippine Startup Challenge professional category final. So the question is, what is this Philippine Startup Challenge 2021? This is very timely because we are going to really promote this. So thanks, Ramon, for inviting us. Ito talaga yung gusto namin i-promote dito sa inyong Y4IT convention, the Philippine Startup Challenge 2021. You know, we've been doing this since 2015. basically, this is an annual pitching competition before only for the students. But now for this year, this is both for the professionals and for the students. Basically, we want to encourage the students to really explore, not to become entrepreneurs themselves. Because diba, karamihan, like kami sa age namin, nakaprogram kami to become employees. But we would really like to encourage students that you have a lot of options. If you want to become startups yourselves, then you can just use technology, just have your crazy idea and just have to dream big. And yeah, so maybe you can start doing that by participating in the Philippine Startup Challenge 2021. And so the goal is to be able to, reinforce Filipino students to create innovative and relevant ICT products and services to be able to help solve social problems. And so we'd like to invite everyone to participate in this. You just have to submit your minimum viable product, no? And this is composed of 2 categories for the students. Dati, this is only for 4th year college students. Now, this is open for 1st year to 4th year or 5th year college students, or even to senior high. You can team up, no? As one team for the student. And then the professionals naman, this is composed of 2 to 4 members with a designated team leader. So for this year, this is the deadline for submission for the professionals is on October 15. So some of the teachers actually have submitted their entries, and then the students have still time to think about, come up with your own ideas and submit to us, because the deadline is still on December 30, 2021. So what you will do is just to submit a 3-minute video pitch and a pitch deck. And this is ito yung criteria, no? In terms of your idea, in terms of viability, relevance, impact, creativity, and presentation. And so initially, you are going to submit through our regional offices, kasi before going to the national finals, we'll have to go through the regional pitching muna. So our regional clusters will have their regional pitching competition, and from the regional winners, we're going to select top 3, and then from the top 3, we're going to select the top 20 for the semi-final round, and eventually choose the top 10 for the national pitching competition. And so these are the prizes now for the professional category. As I mentioned earlier, we have our startup grant fund, which we hope to provide 500,000 pesos per team. And so part of the prizes for the professional category is that we're going to select the top 5, and we'll be giving them that grant, 500,000 per team or per startup. And of course, together with our partners from the private sector, they will be receiving prizes, mentorship. Yan. So yan po yung aming prizes for the professional category. And for the student naman, we'll be choosing 1 grand champion, and there will be 4 runners-up. And they will be receiving gadgets, equipment from our partners, and of course, mentorship from our partners as well. Now, if you want to know more about this, you can just send us an email, or you can go to our webpage, so that all the details will be there. And we are working closely, and to be able to implement those programs, we are working closely with our community partners. So ito po yun. In fact, the speakers today, Andre from Ignite, Spring.ph, Arup, sino pa, Kubo Dave, and Impact Hub are our partners in our startup development program. And we'd like to thank them for all the support that we've been working together, they've been providing to us. And this is really a great collaboration with them. So that's my last slide. Thank you so much. Again, I'd like to thank Sir Mon, the organizer, UPS ATF, for this opportunity. We'd like to encourage all the students, the members from the academy, to participate. There are a lot of opportunities right now. All you have to do is really, grab those opportunities, come up with ideas that will help solve social problems, and then dream big. Sabi nga ni Earl kanina, is really have to focus, Okay, so with that, thank you so much. And you can actually reach out to me if you have more questions, you want to know more the details. We're open for collaboration as well. So just let us know. Again, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Director Delphin. All right, guys, block off your calendars for PH Startup Week 2021 from November 15 to 19, 2021. And of course, DICT is also encouraging you to participate in their Philippine Startup Challenge 2021, calling all the IT professionals and students. Right, ma'am? Okay.
Thanks, Monique. Thank you.
Of course. Just like what we did for with Mr. Mighty's presentation, ma'am. So as we would like to manage the time, we would love to answer all those questions related to your presentation. But for the sake of time management, ma'am, we will be able to answer all those questions na lang later sa ating panel discussion. All right. Okay. Thank you again, Director Delphin. Thank you for gracing our event. All right, okay, guys. Now we'll proceed to our next speaker. Now we have the current head of the Community and Ecosystem Department at Idea Space, QBO, where he leads the startup awareness and advocacy initiatives of the organization. He also helped build and develop the startup local community of Iligan and nearby provinces. Let us all welcome Mr. Dave Del Rosario.
Hello, hi, good afternoon. Let me just quickly share my screen. There. Checking if you guys can see my screen now.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Perfect. Hi everyone, good afternoon. Very much happy to be here, and of course, thanks for inviting me, especially to Sir Mon Ibrahim. My name is Dave Del Rosario. I'm currently the head of the Community and Ecosystem Department at Idea Space Kubo, where we lead all the awareness and advocacy programs of the organization to strengthen the Philippine startup ecosystem. So for the next 15 to 20 minutes, my topic is all about building the Philippine startup ecosystem. And, this topic is very close to my heart and very timely because, as I created my deck last night, I actually realized that year 2021 marks my 10th year in the industry. And I can't help but to go back to my very first days working with Idea Space and supporting them to push the advocacy to really support different startups in the country. And so I told myself while I was doing this deck to why not discuss this topic by sharing what I've seen in the ecosystem over the last 10 years of being here. And looking back and while preparing this deck, this famous quote really resonated with me, because just as it takes a village to raise a child, I think I'd like to believe that it definitely takes a strong startup ecosystem to build a great startup. And I'm very much fortunate to have experienced firsthand the advantages of being part of the Philippine startup ecosystem and witnessing how it started and how it is right now. And over the last 10 years, or for the last 10 years working for the Philippine startup community, I've only been to like 3 organizations. Actually, dalawa lang, since Kubo is supported by Idea Space, and these organizations have actually merged into one organization since February. So since 2012, this is how my 10 years in the Philippine startup scene looks like. I was with Idea Space from 2012 to 2016. Started as their intern during October of 2012. Then later on becoming their marketing and advocacy associate. And while working with Idea Space during that time, I also became active in organizing different startup weekends in the country. And funny then, because Sir Mon FB reminded me that 6 years ago, today was the first ever startup week in Manila that I organized with other enablers. And I saw that Sir Mon Ibrahim was a judge during that time. And here's a picture to prove that that startup weekend 7 years ago. So really time flies. And then during 2016, I decided to leave Manila and help Mindanao. So for everyone nasa Mindanao right now, I hope you guys are doing good. So with no doubts, no hesitation, no friends nor family members, I went to Iligan City May 2 of 2016 and started my journey as the center manager of IDEA, the first technology business incubator in Mindanao. located inside MSU IIT. So I'm not sure if meron mga taga MSU IIT here or MSU students. And from there, my hashtag para sa Mindanao journey began. And I was very fortunate enough that year 2019, I consider that as my year actually, since I was given this once in a lifetime opportunity to join the YCE as its academic fellow, where we went to the US and studied social entrepreneurship at the University of Connecticut for 1 month. And then after I came back, another opportunity came, and that's through the Rainmakers program, the ACT, where I became the Region 10 Rainmaker in charge of helping the region create startup awareness. And then fast forward 2020, I went back to Manila and joined Kubo Innovation Hub. It's Kubo, it's not QB or it's not Cubo. It's really Kubo like a bahay Kubo, no? And also I am currently leading the awareness and advocacy up until now. No? So, over the last 10 years, I've seen the growth of the Philippine startup ecosystem. And just context, I think Prof. Arup and Ms. Emmy was able to mention then, no? Over the last 10 years, we've seen the growth of startups in the country and having likely around between 500 to 700 startups to date. No? So this is like combining also the reports we got sa Startup Link and Startup Genome and all of the mappings that we conducted at Kubo. No? But not just that, we're happy to see that the number of angel investors and venture capital firms are increasing. No, different incubators and accelerators. Actually, this is not super updated because DOST Fisher actually has added new TBIs in the country, and of course, co-working space are being established not just in Manila but almost in each part of the country. So we see this as a result of the joint effort and dedication of different educational institutions, private organizations, and government to really support the ecosystem and startup founders in the country. Just for everyone's context, just to add to what Miss Emmy mentioned kanina, here's what the Philippine startup ecosystem looks like. It's young, and thriving, but full of potential and embedded capabilities. That make it ripe and startups, and that make it ripe for startups to really thrive. No, and we are also receiving some recognitions over the last years, as you can see. Best country for global investment based from Wharton last 2018. Do check out Startup Link and Startup Genome reports to know more about the Philippine startup ecosystem. And we all agree that it's more fun in the Philippines, and I think now is the best time for the Philippines to be known, not just because of Manny Pacquiao, not just because of Boracay, not just because of Miss Universe, but because we are also able to produce great technology, great startups that can change the way we live. And let me share with you what I've seen in the ecosystem over the last 10 years. And last night, I've been looking at different models on how to really build a startup ecosystem. And this model specifically, what you guys can see in your screen is something that I can very much relate to. And true enough, I've seen these 6 components in the ecosystem over the last 10 years. And maybe I can quickly go through them one by one and show you guys how the ecosystem have changed and how different enablers and champions supported the startups in the country. Okay? And maybe I can start here, where I began my journey. Over the years, we are seeing the establishment of different incubators and accelerators in the country, both by the private and public sectors. If you guys are not familiar with this term, incubation and acceleration, I do suggest to watch the K-drama series called Startup. If you have watched that what you guys can see in your screen are actually the sandboxes of the Philippines. So we have so many incubators and accelerators in the country, and they actually provide crucial support to different startups, especially to those in the early stage of development. And yung mas nakakatuwa pa dito is that these incubators and accelerators are not just in Manila. They're everywhere. From Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And of course, that's because also of DOST Fisher TBI's program. We already have 48 technology business incubators in the country, housed in different universities around the country. So for everyone's assignment after this, ask your school, after this event, if you guys have already if you guys already have your own TBI. If yes, then great. You can always take advantage of the opportunities they offer. And if none, talk to your dean, talk to your vice president, talk to your president, no, and tell them that there's a TBI program that can help the school establish its own incubator. And just to also share, us in Idea Space, we have this flagship acceleration program, which is a year-long program for early stage startup founders. No, um, every year out of the 100 entries that we receive, we only select 30 startups that will enter the pre-acceleration program. And then after that, top 20 will proceed and move to the 4-month acceleration program where they will receive monetary and non-monetary support. No? So if you guys are building a startup, definitely check out our acceleration program. The second one, of course, nakaka-happy din is the available mentorship for startups. No? For the last 10 years, I always meet new people that is always game to support startups in the country. Ika nga, no one gets left behind in the ecosystem. No? Someone is always ready to help you and assist you. And us at Kubo, we are fortunate enough to have these people na always ready to mentor our startup. Once you involve yourself to the startup scene, you're gonna meet them. They're all good people with the heart to help startups, and I believe some of them you're gonna meet for the next 3 days of Y4IT. But aside from that, um, I've also seen different mentorship programs to support startups in the country. And of course, at us at Kubo, we regularly do mentorship sessions with experts and different classes to support startups. Now, but aside from what we do at Kubo and Idea Space, there are so many mentorship programs and opportunities that await you if you need it. All you really have to do is, check Google, check Facebook, and avail of all of these opportunities. And then the third thing that I want to emphasize is, of course, the locations and events. The very reason why I left Manila and moved to Iligan is because I want to promote countryside development and bring different opportunities to these provinces. And when you talk about Philippine startup ecosystem, it's always about Manila, it's always about Cebu, which is true naman, because Manila is the center of the startup ecosystem in the country. But I believe that outside Manila lies so many talents and ideas that we need to unveil from the countryside. And to do that, we really need to go to their places, to your places. We need to go to your universities, to your cities, and actually spend time with you guys. Now, for the last 10 years, I've seen so many faces of passion and grit in every boot camps and conferences that we organize is always refreshing and inspiring for us. And of course, us at Kubo being a national innovation hub means going around the country and supporting different homegrown talents in the countryside. And we do that through our roadshow, where we visit different cities and schools per year and conduct a startup conference with students and inspire them to create their own startup. And then the fourth component that I want to highlight as well is the education. This is very important if you want to have a strong startup ecosystem. And the good thing about the ecosystem is that we have this specific subject na it's called T101 or Technopreneurship 101. Not sure if some of you was able to enroll themselves here, but this is a new subject rolled out by PhilDev and CHED in 539 universities all over the Philippines for STEAM student or STEM students. But our hope is that this will also be offered to non-engineering students, since we believe that innovation is for all. And during my college day, I am a marketing grad of Letran Manila, and we definitely didn't have this opportunity. So definitely the Philippines is really catching up in terms of introducing technology, entrepreneurship to different students. But aside from that, again, today's generation is very fortunate to have the support of both the private and public sector in educating them about innovation, about startup, and about technopreneurship. And of course, the establishment of different university-based TBIs is definitely a big help to achieve this. And the contribution of big corporations like SmartSweep, where they support different schools in their technopreneurship journey, is also important. And I guess I'm down to my last two components. The fifth one is always about the talent. I'd like to believe that you cannot build a strong startup ecosystem without talent. And my 10 years of being with the community, conducting different programs for the community gave me confidence that we can do it. That we can put the Philippine flag in the global startup map, because I've seen so many talented students, aspiring startup founders, explorers, developers really ready to change the world and just need a little push to create their own startups. But again, the key here is to be present in their territory, help them, assist them, and mentor them so we can convert these talents to actual startups. And of course, the last one is the funding. No, this drives the growth of our startups in the country. And while funding is still a challenge in the ecosystem, we are seeing different VC firms, different angel investors, and even different government funding supports like DOST and DTI. While these funding opportunities are available to high potential startups, no, and those with traction already, there are also other entities and programs. And as what Ms. Ems mentioned kanina, they also provide grant now for early stage startups. So make sure to check this available funding opportunities for everyone. So I think that wraps up my 10-year observation. Since medyo quick lang din yung time natin. But I definitely have seen the presence of 6 components that I discussed. But there's also this model that I want to share, which looks like the same, no? But here you can see the government support and the role of the large corporations in developing a startup ecosystem. I think I was able to mention a while ago some government supports for startups, and of course we have the 3 agencies supporting us and really super active, no, the DOST, DICT, and DTI. And in terms of the presence of the large companies or the large corporations, we are now starting to see them opening their doors to partner with startup, to fund startup, and to even promote the startup culture in their organization. And down to my last few slides, since I believe that Y4IT is all about peer development, I'd like to pose this question to everyone listening right now. How can you get involved in the Philippine startup ecosystem? Well, the most obvious answer is to start a startup now with the resources and opportunities we have in the ecosystem. I hope mas madali na ngayon mag-create ng startup compared before. But remember that you can also work for a startup or at a startup and offer your skill. If you cannot work at a startup, at least support a local startup. No, with the negative economic impact, they need customers. They need you guys. And lastly is to really get to know the community, explore the Philippine startup scene by joining various online programs or groups, attending virtual meetups. And the best way to do that is, I think na-mention na kanina ni Miss Emmy, is to be involved in the Philippine startup scene. Now, if you guys can see that QR code, get your phones right now. We are giving away gadgets like iPod Air, AirPods, cameras, e-scooter, and many more if you engage with us during the Philippine Startup Week. So don't forget to register through our website. And I guess that's it. The ultimate vision is really to see Filipino startups changing the world, and I believe we can do that. We can do it now. And if you guys have any questions or concerns, feel free to email me at dave@kubo.com.ph, and we hope to see everyone in our future activities moving forward.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dave Del Rosario. So all questions related to Mr. Del Rosario's presentation will be accommodated later in our panel discussion. Thanks again, Mr. Dave. All right, okay. So before our afternoon break, we have one last speaker, guys. He is the founder of Ignite House of Innovation. He also serves as the executive chairman of the Philippines National Innovators Initiative. Please welcome Mr. Andre Yap.
Good afternoon. Hello, hi. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay, so I'm happy to be here. I'm so happy to be here that you're not gonna see me too long, ladies and gentlemen. I was supposed to be here at 2:40. I came in exactly at 2:40 because I was giving another talk, but unfortunately, I can only begin right now, and I'm gonna have to pull this off in 5.5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. So we talk about innovation. I'm gonna have to innovate on the fly here. I have to ask myself, do I really need to take 20 minutes or 30 minutes? Maybe I should have, maybe I want to, but as with all things innovation, sometimes the market forces your hand and you must adjust. So in the 3 minutes that I have left, what is my message to what I understand is a predominantly college audience that we have here? First, a little bit of background. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor at Ignite House. I've started more than 30 ventures since I last started counting, since I stopped counting about 2017. I think what I want to share with you is a very different take on innovation from, I was not able to have the benefit of listening to the prior speakers, but I would suspect that many of them, if not all of them, talked about startups and startup innovation. No? Yes? And I would like to submit and propose to you guys that this startup fixation is not the answer to innovation in our country. Because, and this, I'm going to make this very personal to our students here by asking you a question. Are you, my dear students, more interested, more vested, or more invested in A, innovation, B, startups, or C, a successful career for yourselves? So if my hunch is correct, the predominant number of you guys, and it's not just the college audience, it's the mid-career professionals, it's the business owners who run in the hundreds of thousands in this country, the small business owners. They are, by and large, disproportionately, majoritarily interested in their own career success and business success. They're not interested in startups. They're not even that interested in innovation. But talk to them about how to survive this pandemic, how to get the best job possible, how to double their income opportunities. That's what they're interested in. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what I submit we need to focus on if we're really going to scale innovation in this country to a point where it can be transformational. And if we do that, not only will we prosper and advance innovation and careers in this country, careers of the 1,500 attendees here, we will also, as a happy byproduct, ladies and gentlemen, we will also increase our success rate with startups. Bear in mind, I invest in startups. I caught the tail end of Dave Del Rosario of Cubos, and when he showed the mentor page, I'm invested in several of those people there. Or if I'm not invested in them, I'm co-invested with them. And let me flash back to August 2009. I was, of course, born and I grew up here in Manila. No? Went to Jesuit schools. But I have 3 degrees from the US, and I lived cumulatively in the US for 15 years. By 2009, I was in my last stint in the US. By then, I was on my 7th year. And I got a letter in the mail one day, and it was the US federal government basically telling me that they were granting me officially this status. US permanent residence on the basis of exceptional ability in the national interest of the United States of America. So if you're a superstar basketball player like Joel Embiid from Cameroon, the US government will give you US permanent residence on the basis of exceptional ability, period. And there, you get to work in the US, and after a certain number of years, you get to live in the US as a citizen. I had a step up on Joel Embiid. I was exceptional ability in the national interest of the United States of America. Why? They were recognizing largely my work, my pioneering work in the field of innovation through a venture that I had founded called CubeEd, Center for University-Based Enterprise and Development. Center for University-Based Enterprise, basically university-based accelerators and incubators in the state of Connecticut. I overheard Dave saying something about his stint in Yukon, so that's the state. No? That was August 2009. By December 2009, I had made a fateful, transformative decision for me. And it was that it was time to go home. I am going to give up this US permanent residence. It's 3 o'clock. Because of two things. Number one, my eldest son was about to go into high school, and I wanted him to have Filipino roots. By then, he had lived in the States for many years. And I thought we owed it to this country to have people of this kind of privilege have real Filipino roots. Second, and it's really only emerging very clearly now, but I had this knowing thing that was eating me up back then. If the most powerful country and economy in the world was willing to value what I was doing for their country and their citizens, I was thinking, paano pa kaya my country? Hindi pwedeng dyan ako sa US when I have something to offer the US that my country also needs. So I've spent the better part of, I finally landed here 2011, moved the family back. And ever since then, my mission has been to enable innovation in this country. I had to start with startups, starting startups, investing in startups, getting corporates, the big corporates, because they have a disproportionate control of our economy. So our venture capital model is to get big companies to co-invest with us, big companies and the wealthy families to co-invest with us, not just their financial capital, but also their strategic and human capital. They employ tens of thousands of the brightest. In the Philippines, kasi the smartest people don't go into startups, they go into big corporate, right? So if you're not getting the money and the strategic capital and the human capital of the big corporations in your innovations, you're going to go nowhere. So that's been our model. And it's only now with the pandemic, with everything going digital, that I was able to come closer to this long-held vision and mission, which is to really scale innovation in this country. And this is where I'm sharing with you. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, my dear colleagues, we're not going to do it through startups. We need to enable innovation, which is to say, agile problem solving in our big companies, in our small to medium enterprises, in our government offices, national to local, and especially in the academia. We cannot continue to graduate students who are ill-equipped to solve problems in the workplace, to say nothing of starting their own companies. Startups is a pipe dream. There are so many more people who are invested in their career success. So I will give you a couple of links because I have to jump back to another conference that I am hosting. 2 links to make this actionable, because I submitted a topic for you today called "Let's Shut Up Already and Just Do It." I want to whisper a secret to you. You will not start to become innovators by attending conferences like this. It's about as absurd as saying that we're going to bring up the next LeBron James by making him attend conferences and making him watch videos and read books. You have to practice and apply and practice and apply and practice and apply. It's no different from innovation. In fact, it's all the more required in innovation because so much of innovation is counterintuitive and counter to our habits that have been formed. Trust me on this. So you have to keep on practicing this methodically. There ain't no such thing as I'm going to inspire you to become an innovator or you're going to workshop your way. We need platforms which make people practice every day. Agile problem solving, human-centered design thinking, customer centricity, and above all, empathy. Because true innovation starts with having somebody to care about, that you really deeply care about, and you want to solve their problems. You go from there. You don't start with blockchain and figure out, what am I going to do with this technology? That's the dirty little secret about innovation. It's a very deeply human endeavor that you will fall in love with if you could only practice it, because it will connect you in a very deep way to life, to the world, to humanity, to your fellow country, and to the problems that are crying out loud for solutions. That's what innovation is. We need innovators. We don't need startups. Startups will come if we power innovators. So here's the 2 links. Restart.ph. Restart.ph. I believe Director Emmy of DICT was here. Restart.ph is a partnership with the DICT of Miss Emmy, the DOST, and the DTI, as well as local governments, as well as the academe. What is the goal? It's the National Innovators Initiative, or NI2, to power 100,000 Filipino innovators by 2023. Translated, it's to power 100,000 Filipino careers by 2023. 100,000 Filipino businesses, small businesses by 2023. In other words, 100,000 Filipino success stories. Yes, we will be in startups, but so many more of us will be in big companies and small to medium enterprises. And so many more of us will be in governments, national to local, down to the barangay level. We will be in the academe, in schools, college students, fresh grads, faculty. What unites us all is we are citizen innovators. We are capable of opening our eyes to the problems around us and solving them. We do that, some of us, many more of us will have a shot at this thing called startups. What's better is we will start making our businesses better, our careers better, our barangays better, our schools better, our communities better. God knows this country needs it. Restart.ph, there's several buttons there that you can use as a call to action, because after all, the topic of my talk is let's shut up already and just do it. You've got to do innovation. You got to stop attending conferences like this. You've got to start doing it. Second, and this is especially for college students, this is almost the last train out this year. We have within NI2, the National Innovators Initiative, something called the Guild. The Guild is a dedicated program just for college students to accelerate their careers. How? By accelerating their innovation capabilities. How? By running them through 100-day accelerators that support them in launching new products, new systems, new models. 100 days, 30, 60, 90, 100-day cycles. You launch, you put it in your resume, we put you in touch with real companies, etc., etc. The Guild is there to realize what I'm talking about. It's designed to double your job options and to double your earning potential within 12 months after you graduate from the Guild. How? Because we would have steeped you in innovation practices that will make you a valuable hire in the world of work, and will make some of you a valuable startup founder. Ladies and gentlemen, that is more time than I have. I am grateful for the time here. I'm going to try to do my thing very quickly and jump back with you for a Q&A. I thank you, and I thank our organizers for bringing us here. Maraming salamat. Mabuhay ang Pilipina.
Thank you, Mr. Andre Yap. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas. Shut up and do it. Thank you so much. We'll see you again later in our panel discussion. Thank you. All right. Okay. There you have it, guys. Interesting topics by our great speakers. Thank you very much. All right. Now, we would like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors. Thank you to ASUS, Paymaya, Smart PLDT, Oracle, Linux Professional Institute, Palo Alto Networks, Microgenesis Business Systems, Archer M Security, Empire Locks, Felta Multimedia Inc., Panadera de Pantoja, and Teleperformance. All right, guys, please see the screen once again to see the details on our openings, upcoming openings. We are looking for info system developers and web app developers. So if you would like to start your exciting IT journey in this profession, please send your CVs to Janine Gatchalian at jfgatchalian@up.edu.ph. For more info, please see the details on what's shown on the screen right now. Okay, again, for students, here's how to request for your Y4IT 2021 e-certificates. Please use the bit.ly link showed on your screens right now. An e-certificate will be provided for a fee of 100 pesos per session attended, and a total of 600 pesos if you will join all 6 sessions. The e-certificate will be sent via email as soon as we have verified your participation, and an e-copy of your payment receipt uploaded via the request form. Okay? You can also opt to make a one-time payment if you choose to attend all 6 sessions. For payment, we have GCash, PayMaya, Landbank, and BPI available. So guys, if you have any questions about the event or about our speakers, about the presentations, please email us at info.y4it@upsitf.org. All right. Now for students, teachers, and academicians, and many more, we don't want you to miss our Y4IT sessions. So please watch our previous sessions on our Y4IT YouTube page. And of course, watch out for our upcoming sessions for day 2 and day 3 live. All right, everyone? So we will have a 10-minute break. Please be back after 10 minutes. Thank you. Hello, welcome back everyone. Hello, alright. So before we proceed to our next speaker, shout out muna tayo sa ating mga participants. Okay, sige, sa mga gusto magpa-shoutout dyan ng friends nila, professors nila, classmates, go ahead. Please send them in our chat box. Okay, ito merong from Atim Casey. Shoutout po kay Ma'am Shireen Labong and Sir Ronmar Kalingnan from La Verdad Christian College. Napaka-active ng participants natin from La Verdad Christian College. Hello, hello, good afternoon sa inyong lahat. Hi Marge, hi Rom, hi Ken, Ren. Shout out to ACLC College. Wow, ang dami, ayan na. BS La Verdad again, St. Dominic, Tanawan Institute. Hello. Alright. Okay, sige, I have to control. Shout out po from the University of Eastern Pangasinan. Jome from St. Anne College. Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Crisel from LVCC. Okay, shout out po kay Alexandria Tulipat. Ayan, hello. All right, okay. Thank you very much for sending in your shout outs. Keep them coming, guys. But now let's proceed to our next speaker. All right. Okay, so the next speaker has more than 20 years of experience in advancing and pushing the boundaries of digital and emerging technologies. From being a co-founder of tech startups to leading the tech advances of vast private companies, today he is the Chief Technology Officer of PayMaya. But prior to this, he was also the engineering lead on global mobile media application development and regional mobile engineering efforts in Yahoo. Please welcome Mr. Alfred Law.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you see the slide?
Yes, we can see the slides. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Alfred Lau, CTO of PayMaya Philippines. Next slide, please. I head the technology and engineering teams in PayMaya. I have over 20 years of experience in leading large-scale digital and engineering initiative. Very happy to be here. So next slide. I just want to, before I start, to talk a bit on PayMaya. We are one of the largest fintech in Philippines and the only end-to-end digital payment ecosystem enabled in the country. We provide over 38 million of Filipino access to financial service through our consumer platform, and also enable merchants to accept cashless payment. Our enterprise business is the largest digital payment processor in the country. We also operate our agent network called Smart Parlor with over 57,000 touchpoints throughout the country, providing access to the unbanked and underserved Filipinos. We have also recently granted a digital banking license and intend to launch a digital bank in early 2022, providing banking and financial service to our customer. Next slide, please. So today we will talk a bit on emerging technologies and its opportunity. Now, emerging technology can be a very broad topic. We will first take a quick look at the trending areas in the industry in the lens of PayMaya from a fintech perspective. And then I will share some of my view on how to prepare ourselves and seize the opportunities. Next slide, please. So we have seen a dramatic increase in cloud adoption, especially in financial sector. Apart from pure public cloud, there are more and more hybrid cloud set up, which combine the private cloud with one or more public cloud service providers. Together, we see also the rise of serverless computing, where the developer only need to be responsible for the server-side code logic and does not necessarily to worry about the entire infrastructure, not even the virtual machine or the software containers. Of course, this put pressure in the cloud infrastructure provider, and they need to have a newer generation of infrastructure. Infrastructure elements like networking, storage, processing, and security are now being virtualized and delivered as a service. Software can be used to control the entire computing infrastructure without human intervention, and this is called software-defined infrastructure. This element can also be further unified and integrated together using commodity hardware in a hyper-converged setup in order to further reduce the data center complexity. And then you see now things can be increasingly connected. With 5G, the increase in spectrum will allow massive amount of devices to be connected. There will be an increase in speed and throughput with ultra low latency and reliable communication. And once things are connected, they can also do payment between each other. So imagine your connected car can now automatically suggest you to authorize a payment for fuel as you approach a pump in the gas station. Or your smart meter can automatically pay for the monthly utility bill for you. So in this case, not just we can deliver a cashless experience, which is just to convert cash to digital money, but a smarter, intelligent, automatic payment experience. Next slide, please. Then you have AI. Banking industry is now using AI in computer vision and natural language processing to support use cases like KYC, ID validation, customer support handling. Different AI model has been built in different industry, and you will see AI application everywhere. Some of the use case can be quite interesting. A few months ago, I've seen a developer develop a AI chatbot and allow a heartbroken man to converse with a simulation of his fiancée who died in 2012. So of course, in the fintech domain, we cannot avoid talking about cryptocurrency, blockchain, and distributed ledger technology. Although there have been general confusion between them, where people equate blockchain as crypto, Bitcoin, or Bitcoin as blockchain, I just want to clarify, the idea of distributed ledger is to have a network of every node in the network to have the same data so that the distributed ledger can be used to record and store things. This makes recording hard to change, and you can actually retain the data in every single node. Now, blockchain is a type of distributed ledger. A blockchain creates blocks of data, and all of these blocks are chained. So if you want to modify something, you have to change everything in the past and moving forward, which makes really, really hard. And the cryptocurrency is one type of application of blockchain, and Bitcoin is just one type of cryptocurrency. And there has been some interesting use case of blockchain and distributed ledger, which allow digital distribution of value through non-fungible token, NFT recently. Traditionally, the internet is only a medium good for distribution of information, but not for something like art, because people can just copy it. Now, blockchain can make use of the distribution of the value easy. So if you are an artist, you have a new way of selling your digital art, which allow it to be distributed across the internet, which still guarantee its authenticity, uniqueness, and scarcity. And now you can sell art that are previously sold for millions of US dollars. And some example are the cartoon face you see here. Last, we also have quantum computing, where we explore the behavior at the subatomic level, at the level of electrons and protons, where the classic law of physics does not apply. Here, one object can be in two places at the same time, or an electron can spin clockwise and anti-clockwise simultaneously. So this kind of quantum computer can perform computation much faster than our current state-of-art supercomputer, and can potentially reduce the execution time, which take the normal computer from hundreds of years down to hours or days. So quantum computing can also be applied to the current classical cryptography, which may change the landscape of blockchain. Next slide, please. So now you have seen the different emerging technology. Actually, this is not really my main topic. The key question here is, what should we do? Next slide, please. Here's a typical hype cycle of technology. It shows a graphical presentation of its maturity, adoption, and its social application. So a typical technology will go through 5 phases. The first phase is called technology trigger. So there is a potential technology breakthrough, kicking things off, and there is some early proof of concept, story, and media interest trigger significant publicity. Often there is no usable product yet, and the commercial viability is still need to be proven. Then people will have a inflated expectation. The media hype is significantly bigger than its actual utility value. Only some companies are involved at this point of time. And then the interest drop as the imitation failed to deliver, not matching the expectation of the people, and some participants quit. And then you rise up again. So technology and the products start to be mature, and the public start to understand the appropriate use case of the technologies. And after that, it goes into mainstream adoption. So this is not very scientific in nature. Sometimes one still cannot tell you in exact where a technology is in that cycle. For example, in quantum computing, definitely it's not in the mainstream adoption, but at which point is it in the early stage? Have it reached the peak of inflated expectation? Also, what is the notion of time? Will it take 10 years or 30 years to go through each stage? Next slide, please. So where are the opportunities? So recently with the rise of Bitcoin price, I've been hearing if I bought Bitcoin a few years back, I should have now reached financial freedom. So for opportunity like that, you will always find whenever you look back, there were so many of them. And whenever you look forward, you will find in most cases, opportunities are always taken. You may think of risk, uncertainty, unknown, and fear. So if I ask you to go and buy Bitcoin now, people will say Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is popular now in bubble, right? And not only people in our current generation will think like that, our previous generation will think that too, whether they were 20 years or 200 years ago. And while future generation look at our current generation, it will also be the same. They will think the opportunity at 2021 are so obvious, and why can't they see it? So how? So before trying to answer this question, let's take a look at this picture. Next slide, please. So this is a picture from Palawan, one of my favorite places in Philippines. And I want to ask everyone, is this a mountain or island? So from the onset, this sounds like an obvious and easy question. Philippines is a country consisting of 7,000 islands. So it's an island. And well, whether it's a mountain or island is actually based on the sea level. Next slide, please. This is a video showing how the Earth can be connected if the ocean is drained. So I'm not sure you have this feeling. For those who live in your own area, in your last 10 years, have you seen and witnessed the improvement in electricity, connectivity, internet, Wi-Fi, delivery, and transport? Now you can imagine the sea level as like a technological advancement. Even though you just stay at the same place, as the technology advances, you are able to do more, and you can see and reach things that are previously not available. So to concretely illustrate this, I give you an example. Next slide, please. This is an online employment marketplace allowing employer to post job ads, do talent search, and for job seeker to apply. So some of you may have used it, especially you're the final year student. You probably will go to the website and download this app. Now, have you thought of there can be another way of doing this? Next slide, please. What if the employer can now post the job ad to a social network? And the social network can know you so well that they not only know who you are, and you're not only a university student, but they know what major you're in, which campus, and what are your interests and personality. And it's so targeted that the job ad will just pop out to the set of the relevant potential candidate, and you only need to do one click to apply. And because the network knows you so well, the employer can now use some of these analytics and may not even need you to do some of the aptitude tests. Now, will this be the next generation of job recruitment? In China, this is already happening. Now, things were not that connected and was in silo before, just like what you saw in the previous island picture. You need to go to a job site to do job search or to go to a shopping app for goods. This is actually a friction. Now, after you go to that site, you need to filter out thousands of job ads or product listing to find your jobs or goods. This is also actually a friction. So what are your true intent? What you want to do is actually just to get a job that fit you, or you just want to replenish your food. Now, so as the technology continues to advance, things become better connected, and they can have an alternative or better way to serve your true intent, just like what you have seen for the lowering sea level. So one day it can be the job that fit you automatically go to you, or your refrigerator can automatically order the food for you if it detect the food is running out and you don't even need to do anything. Next slide, please. Many people said that traditional industry does not need high tech, just like the banks, or you may have seen in the job search industry. I believe there is only traditional company, but no traditional industry. Everyone can find new opportunity using the new technology in any industry. As such, in preparing the future, you can do the following. Number one, continuous learning. Be open and be curious in different areas. Make learning as part of your everyday, every week activities, and develop your own intuition in identifying trends and where are they in the hype cycle. Second, understand your industry and ecosystem surrounding it. Be empathetic and understand the true pain point of the people. These are the real needs. Third, to address the real needs, you doesn't need to be a scientist or inventor. You can leverage others. You doesn't need to be an AI researcher in order to use AI. You doesn't need to be an infrastructure expert to use the cloud. You can always innovate using the Lego blocks of the others. Fourth, develop your machine quotient and the ability to use intelligent machines to solve your problems and work with them. Let the machine to do what they do best and free us as human beings to focus, to innovate, to connect, and to lead. Next slide, please. And you need to continuously challenge yourself and build your dark capabilities. Now, challenge yourself is the office part. And I want to expand a little bit on what do I mean by dark capabilities. Next slide, please. Does anyone know here what the website is? Next slide, please. This is actually Amazon.com at 2006. That was the year they launched the first cloud service. Do you know the history of Amazon Web Service, which is the cloud computing platform we are using today? That was early 2000 when Amazon was building up its e-commerce business. They wanted to create a shared IT platform so that the engineering team could spend less time dealing with the IT infrastructure problems and can focus on the customer-facing innovation. Also, during the holiday season, they also need to handle the unusual peak traffic so that they can have an infrastructure that was oversized and some of the spare capacity can be open for others. That was how they developed the dark capability of cloud computing. Even at that time, Amazon was an e-commerce company, and those capabilities were created to solve the internal challenge and not to be known until they exposed this to the public. And today, Amazon Web Service is a $50 billion business. Now you have to continuously challenge yourself and build these dark capabilities. And one day it can become useful and create new opportunities. Next slide, please. Now let's go back to the question. How do you seize the opportunities of emerging technologies? And there are two kinds of approach. The first one is that we have to run as far as we can to catch them. This may be the typical thinking. At my times like yours, my peer chose computer science or computer engineering because it was popular at that time. There was the dot-com bubble in the years from 1995 to year 2000. And the people quickly quit the field after the bubble burst at 2002, and they got to do something at that time that was emerging. And one may just keep shifting the field or the technical tracks to catch the latest trend. Now, if you understand the technology is continuously changing, then you may not be easily distracted by the change. Now, what superficially look like an opportunity, is it really opportunity? Just like the example I have cited before, say you have invested a lot in Bitcoin. What if tomorrow the quantum computing break the cryptography that is used in the Bitcoin? And even if there's an opportunity, can you really catch it? look at the field of AI. The research have already started in 1950, and a lot of the algorithm we have used today were already there in 1980s and 1990s. Neural network is already there in 1980s. And it's until the recent years with the explosion of computing power that unleashed the power of AI. So if you don't have any passion and interest on it and just want to catch the opportunity, do you have the patience to wait for so many years until AI become widely adopted today? Or are you the type of the people who are gifted to work on the algorithms? And hence come another approach, which is to continue to work on your own areas. Of course, assuming you like working on it. Keep learning, grow your machine quotient, build your dark capabilities, and wait for opportunity to come. And when it comes, apply the new technology in your own domain area in a way that can solve the problem, the true pain point, and the original intent of the user, using the innovation module from the others. Next slide, please. And I want to end my presentation with this metaphor. In facing the ever-changing technology, you can either be a rabbit. Here we run as far as we can, just to stay in place. And if you wish to go anywhere, you must run twice as fast as that. Or you can be a tree, stay grounded, connect with your roots, turn over a new leaf, bend before you break. Enjoy your unique natural beauty and keep growing. And there's no right or wrong answer. My suggestion is to follow your heart. Now this ends my presentation. Next slide, please. In Paymaya, we take pride as being one of the best tech team in the region. If you're interested in having a career with us, please send your email to career@paymaya.com. That's my presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alfred Law. May we ask you to please stay as we are down to our insightful panel discussion. Finally, we'll be having back with us Mr. Monchito Ibrahim, who will be serving as the moderator for today's panel discussion, which will all be about digital startups. Joining him as this afternoon's panelist, we also have the founder of Blast Asia, Mr. Y4IT. All right, so without further ado, if we can have Mr. Monchito Ibrahim to kindly take it away.
Thank you, Monique. Is Alfred joining us? No.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Alfred, if I may ask a question, are you based in Manila or are you still in Hong Kong?
I'm based in Manila. I've been in the Philippines for the last 10 years.
Oh, okay. So you know how to speak Tagalog?
No, I still don't know. So I need to be in English.
Anyway, thank you, gentlemen, Arup and Alfred, for your very insightful presentations. Arup, it was nice to actually go through Startup 101 again, okay, in a very, very quick way. We used to do Startup 101 for one whole day, okay,
Yes.
and you did it in what, 20, 25 minutes? And in your case, Alfred, truly insightful presentations on how our young techies can actually identify opportunities, and how, more importantly, how they can actually seize opportunities, okay, especially in the field of innovation. To our participants, we apologize because four of our previous speakers were talking of Earl, Director Emmy, and Andre, as well as Dave, had to excuse because they have other webinars to take care of. But I was informed that Andre and Dave will actually try to catch up with the conversation that we will have in this panel. Let me start with you, Arup. Okay, you've been in the Philippines for what, 20 plus years, and you've been very, sorry?
26 years.
Oh, 26 years, okay. And you've actually spent a lot in the startup scene. You were basically one of the people in the Philippine Software Industry Association that conceptualized the Spring.ph was this projects, and which I was actually very, very fortunate to have the chance to work with you guys. Okay, it was truly very meaningful. Now, what have you seen so far? The last was this 10 years as far as was this the development of the Philippine startup ecosystem. What do you see have happened? What were the things that we actually missed? Okay, and looking at maybe the next 10 years, what do you think would be critical elements that we need to see present in our was this in our ecosystem in order for us to really was this create the unicorns that we've actually been longing for. Yes, Arup.
Thank you, thank you. And it wasn't mentioned, but it was also your contribution of bringing the entire industry together, which has actually helped bring us where we are today. So let me start by a small discussion we had. So I had Joey and Cliff and Ito, and we were sitting in one of the tables. I'm not sure if you were there or we pulled you in later, but it was one of our conferences. And we kind of started talking about that, a lot of our discussion on the PSIA was going on about developing programmers and talents and all. But this was like 2011, and we are saying this is all great and we want to be, we are good at service and we are going to be better at it, but we need to build our IP. And when we were discussing, we couldn't count more than 50 startups or product companies at that point of time. And we said there has to be better than this. We got to do something more than this, right? And that was the start of PSIA Spring. And I think we came a long way. In fact, when we started talking to you and you brought the entire, the industry together, you set a goal of 500 startups, right? At that point of time, if I remember it correctly. Yeah. And we did exceed that in the last several years. And it's not just the numbers, but I have been very pleasantly surprised with the quality of startups that has been coming out in the last couple of years, right? I mean, these are world-class startups, not just trying, but a lot of them are coming from a lot of failures. I mean, including us, we have been trying over and over again, and in the startup, nothing is valued more than failed startup founders. And we now have a lot of them who have failed it and learned it, and now we are kind of trying to do it correct.
Okay.
Funding, I mean, plenty of funding, and I was surprised with also the DICT and other programs that are coming in the next several years. Amazing. I mean, these 10 years have been super, and I am quite happy. I mean, though we have wanted thousands of startups, we are not there, but at least we have set the foundation right to reach there sometime soon.
Thank you, Arup. Alfred, my first exposure to digital wallets and fintech was probably 10 years ago when I was visiting China, and I was wondering how come people here do not use physical money to actually pay for the things they're actually buying. They're all using their smartphones to actually pay for everything. Okay. And nobody was in China, nobody was, and even Hong Kong for that matter, nobody's using credit cards, okay? And now we're seeing the same thing. Of course, this has been, facilitated so much by the pandemic. Now we're seeing the same thing happening in the Philippines, okay, with people using, platforms like PayMaya to pay for everything as well. What do you see is actually the future of your platforms such as PayMaya in the Philippines?
Yeah, so So one of the goal of PMI is to enable cashless economy in the country, right? So our strategy has always been empower the multiple stakeholder in the ecosystem. One side is the consumer. So that's what you mentioned about the wallet customer. So to replace the cash into cashless. Now, another part is on the merchant, right? So even you have the consumer have a wallet, but your merchant, your small, medium enterprise or your service store, if they don't accept this payment, there's no way you can make this work, right? So on the other hand, we also work very closely with these merchants, enterprise to enable their payment acceptance, to accept payments of all form. It's not just on the PayMy wallet, but also including different kind of form of payment, including the card. Now, not only that, right? So at the same time, when you look at the entire country in Philippines, you have 7,000 islands and the province. Some of the areas are so remote that there's no bank and ATM.
Yeah.
And how do we going to enable financial accessibility in those areas? So in this case, we also enable some of the areas, the SME and the service store using our platform to power the business. We call that smart partner. So now they actually have a form of electronic platform to allow people to also to transact somehow, to do remittance or to top up pay bills. So this form an ecosystem. So you have the merchant, you have the consumer, you have the agent network that almost act like a bank branch in the remote area. And then recently we also get into digital banking so that we can provide a full suite of financial service, including lending to our customers. So this is how we conceptualize the payment ecosystem.
Yeah, and in fact, platforms like PayMaya, it's now becoming a way of life for most Filipinos. Okay, and it has truly disrupted the financial systems in the Philippines. And the only thing that I'm actually not seeing yet is significant adoption of these platforms in the remote provinces. Well, that's understandable because of the internet infrastructure situation that we have here. But I think in a matter of 3 years, everything will dramatically change as well, even for the remote areas in the Philippines. Now, question for you, okay? In the same way that platforms like PayMaya has disrupted the financial systems, especially channels and payment systems in the Philippines, what other areas do you think would need some more disruptions?
This is an interesting question. To me, I think it's everywhere. So in the past, I do believe that innovation will happen on one way or one area or the other. But nowadays, if you see, right, for example, AI, I just talked about cloud, everyone can use that. Now, so what will happen is that people can apply this technology in a Lego block manner, right? And then they can use it to solve the pain point in any industry. So as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, what happens is that there will be no traditional industry already. Every industry can be disrupted, right? So the only thing is there is a traditional company. If you have a traditional mindset, that will become a problem. So that is the thing I see, right? So everywhere could be potentially disrupted. You just need to apply the latest set of technology in such a manner that you solve the pain point of the user.
Thank you. Arup, can you tell us what are the things, what do we need to do to actually really make this digital startup ecosystem, the Philippines, more lively, more dynamic, or to the extent of really scaling it up to the same level as probably what we're seeing in Singapore and other startup hubs in the world?
Interesting. Before I answer that, let me also share a personal experiment that have been running since last year in line with digital payments. So I have practically not used my debit card or cash for the since last year, February. I'm literally surviving on one is Gcash wallet, and the second is with my touch payment through PayMaya payment captures used by all these fast foods and all. And so far, I think there's only a couple of areas where I had to find some cash. And one was like some of the parking lots, which still insist on cash payments. And there is a very insistent water delivery boy in my building who still wants cash. But other than this two, I actually have been able to survive the last 2 years without touching my debit card or withdrawing cash.
Okay.
Now, going back to your question, I think when Dave 500 Startup visited Philippines long time ago, about 5 years or so ago.
5 years ago.
And then we were talking, and then he actually even posted. So I think the biggest factor that makes the ecosystem move forward and make it vibrant is really the risk money. The risk money is basically money that flows into idea stage startups and seed stage startups. We have gone a long way in 10 years. We now have venture funds and family offices and others and corporate CVCs, which is good, but we still don't have the amount of money from the angels and all. And our angel network is still not at that level what you see in like other countries like India and others, because a lot of startups, even till now, when I speak to them, they still complain that when they try to talk to angels, they're asking for like 50% equity for like whatever $50,000 or something like that, right? So that is still not matured yet. It's getting there. There's a lot of especially the angel funds or angel investment coming from those who have experience in startups, right? And that's the ecosystem that's evolving. So this is not the traditional people who were used to investing in restaurants and real estate, because that was a mindset which took a while to get out of, like in terms of I'm investing in this, I need to get a large chunk of it. But in a startup, it's actually a bad thing if you own more share than the founders, because what do you really hold? Tomorrow the guy has no interest of sitting there. He'll just move on to his next startup, and you'll be sitting there with a thing that has no value. So I think the risk capital is one biggest factor, and I think that's where government can partner. Hopefully, like Malaysian example, like the example in Singapore, kind of helping de-risk the private capital, because obviously, in nowhere it has been said that government is the best one to really fund startups. I mean, that is probably not the best idea. And if we look at the history of all the different countries, that is not the best model either. But what has worked is when government lowers the risk of the private funding by participating together, tag along, etc., which has worked very well.
Okay, thank you. My next question is again back again for you, Arup. Most of our participants are actually coming from far-flung provinces, cities. Okay, how should they actually start a startup ecosystem in their own province or city?
So that's a very good question, and this has been in my mind for the last 2 years, mainly because I have literally not gone out much out of my house, right? So I've been, and what I did is we have launched this new startup. We have raised $800,000 from across the world investors. We sold in 4 countries to customers, and all of this I haven't seen any of my team members' face in this last 2 years, other than on Zoom and Teams and what. And customers like in Australia, etc., we got them, we closed them, we implemented, we rolled out everything all remotely. So going back to your point, physical location has no meaning in today's world. As long as you have a decent internet connection, there's no limit in knowledge. You can find any kind of knowledge. You can have team members from anywhere in the world. You can get money from anywhere in the world. So the ecosystem definition of having it within the town, maybe later, but you don't need to limit to that. You could be sitting in your home and your team could be spread all across the country or even the region. Your money could be coming from anywhere, and you could target customers anywhere that makes sense for your business model.
Okay, thank you. Going back to you, Alfred, in the case of Paymaya, how do you guys distinguish yourselves from, you know, have a lot of competitors around, okay? And probably the same was its level as Paymaya, or probably a little bit smaller than Paymaya. But you have, you know, quite a number of competitors out there in the market, okay? How do you distinguish yourself? And the second question is, how do you make sure that you're actually the preferred platform for everyone?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest differentiator for Paymaya is still the ecosystem play that we have, right? So the problem here is still the same. If you have all the user, all the consumer using the wallet, but there's no merchant to accept it, right? That is a problem, right? And say even you have the wallet, you cannot top up. That is a problem, right? So in Paymaya, we emphasize a lot is to create an ecosystem that will connect merchant to our consumer. And also we have that agent network that allow people, even in the remote area, to even low top up their wallet. I think this is one critical area. The second part is to provide a newer set of financial service, right? And that is something that we have been consistently doing, which is do innovation on top of that. Just give you an example. One part of that is to provide financial service accessibility to our Sari store agent, right? Now, typically those are the people, they don't have a access to the bank, they cannot easily get a loan, right? So we actually will do credit scoring of them based on their transaction, right? And actually allow them to provide loans, get loans from us. And they can use that loan to power their business, their day-to-day business. And they can actually to repay their part of the loan using part of the transaction that they use our platform to transact. So every part of the transaction, we deduct part of the fee to repay part of the loan. So in this case, they don't really have pressure in repaying the entire amount of the loan during in the due date in a traditional loan setting, right? So these are some of the innovation we have been keep continuously doing on our financial service, which is to empower our user to get a better financial service accessibility and allow them to do more in the ecosystem.
You're actually taking business away from the Bombays, okay? With due respect to Arup here.
Not my business.
Anyway, guys, I think we're running out of time, so I'd like to hear parting words from you for our participants for today. Okay, let me start with you, Arup.
Startup is not for everyone. So I guess there would be people who would want to join the industry, as in they are. I mean, knowing most of the people, the listeners over here are into technology segment or related segment. You have made the right choice. You need to keep updating your skills. Like any field, whatever we study, I mean, most of the time school and college is just to teach us how to learn rather than teach us everything that we need to know in the field. So, when it comes to innovations and learning, this is a field where there's a lot of opportunity and and it's changing every 6 months. So you cannot depend on school and your degree to keep you updated. So you have to build the habit of knowing, learning on your own. And you could be sitting at your home at the remotest part of the country, and you could be working for the biggest company in the world, or you can create the biggest company in the world also sitting from home. So all the opportunities are there. It's all available today. And thankfully, even the internet has improved substantially in the last 2 years. I can feel that my lot of out of the 130 people, more than 70% have moved back to their province, and they are working from there. And we have never heard a complaint from any of our global clients or anyone about anything. So it can be done. And this is a great time to be in the technology space. So yeah, the opportunities are wide open. Learn and build it wherever you want to go. Best of luck.
Thank you, thank you. Alfred, your parting words for participants for today?
Yeah, so startup is not for technologists, right? It's not for engineer, it's not for researcher. Startup can be for everyone, right? So to do the startup, what you need to do is really identify the pain point in your own area. Focus on that, right? And you doesn't need to be the forefront of the technology, but you can apply the technology. Sometimes the technology can be provided by the other. What you need to do is to aggregate it together, just like assembling the Lego blocks, right? So what you need to do is to understand pain point, continues to learn, identify the area, and everyone can create a startup.
Well, thank you, thank you. And in behalf of UPSITF, Alfred, Arup, we'd like to thank you for being with us this afternoon, and more power to you guys. And I'd like to give the mic back to Monique. Monique, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ibrahim. And to our panelists, thank you very much, Mr. Arup and Mr. Lo. Thank you for joining us today. All right. Okay. So now, before we end our exciting first day for Y4IT 2021, we would first like to thank our sponsors, okay? Thank you to ASUS, PayMaya, Smart PLDT, Oracle, Linux Professional Institute, Palo Alto Networks, Microgenesis Business Systems, Archer M Security, Empire Locks, Delta Multimedia Inc., Panadera de Pantoja, and Teleperformance. All right, once again, we would like to mention that we are looking for info system developers and web app developers. So if you would like to start your exciting IT journey in these professions, please send your CVs to Janine Gatchalian at jfgatchalian@up.edu.ph. For more info about this, please see the details on what's shown on the screen. Again, for students, here is how to request for Y4IT 2021 e-certificates, okay? Please use the bit.ly link showed on your screens right now, as an e-certificate will be provided for a fee of 100 pesos per session attended, and a total of 600 pesos if you will join all 6 sessions. The e-certificate will be sent via email as soon as we have verified your participation, and an e-copy of your payment receipt uploaded via request form. Okay? You can also opt to make a one-time payment if you choose to attend all 6 sessions. For payment, we have GCash, PayMaya, Landbank, and BPI available. Payment instructions are also available via the request form. Okay, so please be guided accordingly. And lastly, if you have any questions about the event, about the presentations, about our speakers, please email us at info.y4it@upsitf.org. All right, guys, nandyan pa ba kayo? Kasama ko pa ba kayo? O sige, kung kasama ko ba kayo, pahingi naman ako ng smiling emoji dyan. Wow, yes po. Ayan. Thank you, JV Christian Bar, Remeford, Guys, I hope magkita-kita pa tayo bukas. This is just our first day, di ba? Interesting and exciting topics for our first day. What more sa ating day 2 and day 3? Wow, thank you very much. Wow, ang dami nagsisend ng smiling emoji. Thank you so much. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's our program for today. For our students, teachers, professionals, and many more, we don't want you to miss our Y4IT sessions. So please watch our previous session on Y4IT YouTube page, okay? Also, don't miss out our incoming sessions for day 2 and day 3 live. Now, we would like to thank once again our speakers, attendees, our Y4IT family, DMCI, and to those who helped make today a memorable day. Thank you everyone for being part of the first day of Y4IT 2021. Catch us again tomorrow for Y4IT Day 2. And I hope you're all excited kasi bukas magsa-start tayo ng raffle. Alright, so mag-raffle na tayo ng prizes bukas. Exciting yan. So once again, my name is Monique Cardenas. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you all again tomorrow. Bye-bye!